Coming up, we've got the big game, and we're not talking about Apple versus Samsung. Microsoft gets in the tablet market, or does it? And, well, we've got hackers, and hackers. It's all coming up on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for Twit is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Twit. This Week in Tech, episode 391, recorded February 3rd, 2013. File:///.
This Week in Tech is brought to you by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow. Send files of almost any size easily and securely with ShareFile from Citrix. Try ShareFile today for a 30-day free trial. Go to sharefile.com. Click the radio microphone and enter Twit. And by ICE.com. Your path to a successful Valentine's Day this year begins with a Twit exclusive offer from ICE.com. 25% off your entire purchase, plus free guaranteed delivery. Get your big discount on fine jewelry now through February 12th at ice.com/twit. And by audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/twit2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter, user ID audible_com. And by Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com. Use the offer code TWIT2. And don't forget, they recently launched a great developer platform for complete code control.
It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. It's the show where we take the tech news of the week and rummage through it like a man going through an old couch looking for enough change to buy the G4 TV network. I'm Father Robert Balacer, the digital Jesuit, in for Leo Laporte, the tech guy, who is currently at some super bowl-shaped sporting event that I cannot describe without the express written consent of the NFL. We've got a great panel, starting with our very own Mr. Tom Merritt, Ace to Tech. Tom, coming from his studio in Los Angeles, how are things down in Lala World?
They are lovely. Thanks for having me on, Father Robert. This is good. This is awesome. I'm excited about this panel.
I am also quite excited, especially since we have your frame rate cohort, Mr. Brian Brushwood, fresh off of his... What were your duties again? Archduke of Awesome, the Sultan of Scam?
It's tough being the Archduke of Awesome and the Sultan of Scam. They're opposing titles, so you have to wear a lot of different hats. You know how it goes. I didn't know I had to write material. You come in, you're doing a stand-up comedy routine right at the go time, man. You're gonna make me look bad.
It's how we roll. That's how we roll. Speaking of how we roll, we've got this whole menage a twit thing going on here, where we've got people who have been on each other's shows. So we've got the very lovely, the very special, the very geeky Veronica Belmont. Veronica, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I've hosted shows with most of the people on the panel today, or actually just Tom and Brian, actually.
Yeah, I feel like a fourth wheel.
Sorry, it's
Fifth.
okay.
Fourth.
Fifth?
Depends what kind of vehicle you're riding. Anyways, let me introduce you to someone who is not a fourth or fifth wheel, Mr. Tim Stevens. You're the Emperor of Engadget. Is that what we're calling you?
Is that what the lower third says?
Is that yeah?
Yeah, I think that'll do. That'll do for today.
And you actually are in studio. You're not.
I am.
You're not
here
Skyping
live
like
with
these
you
other
for the first time,
people.
and it's pretty awesome to be here, I must say.
This is your first time in the Brick House.
First time in Paluma too. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, what do you think?
Why you guys show us up, Tim?
Well, you know, I just thought I'd come here and be sociable, and it turns out nobody else is here. But Padre and I, we're going to have a good show. You guys can, jump in whenever you want to.
We're going to have a couple of beers, eat some buffalo. I'm going to eat most of the buffalo wings, but, that's just how we do things. But let's get right
you guys are
to
in
it.
the same place. You're just going to end up sharing diseases. You got to stay in your own cubicle, don't you see?
Yeah.
All the experienced Twit hosts know to stay in our little robo boxes here.
I've got a lot
I've
of
been here
hand
for
gel.
78 days. It's getting a little stuffy. But I have plenty of supplies, so I should be good for another couple months at least.
And we
How
all
are
know
the
that Tom Merritt is in front of a green screen, so he really could be anywhere right now.
Right. This is the best darn green screen.
He could be right behind you.
In fact, Tom is in the back room. We're just projecting him into the set. That's how Twit rolls.
Magic.
Fantastic. Let's get to it. We've got the first story about the big game, about that Super Bowl-y type thing. But we're not talking about football. Remember, I promised you it wasn't going to be about the Super Bowl, but rather about the Super Bowl tech. We've got a story coming out of Ars Technica talking about how the Superdome is being wired to be wireless. They're hoping to serve up to 30,000 simultaneous connections with 700 access points on the inside of the Superdome and 250 access points on the outside of the Superdome. Now, what strikes me about this is it's a lot like we saw going on with the Olympics, where they're going to have sort of the Wi-Fi police roaming the Superdome looking for, quote-unquote, rogue wireless devices. They don't want you turning on your Wi-Fi. They don't want you turning on your phone to create a hotspot because it will interrupt the Wi-Fi experience of the people around them. I want to throw this to you, Veronica, first. When you're talking about this many people in that small of a space, we've just come to expect Wi-Fi won't work, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's how it goes at big events like this. Like the towers, the local towers can only, at least for like LTE or 4G coverage, can only handle so many connections at one time. But if they're doing Wi-Fi, I mean, there's how many people? 73,208 fans. That's a very specific number of people, by the way, that they posted in this article. So it might be enough, but you know, it always comes down to the day of to really see how well this kind of thing works out. But you know, even very tech savvy events like South by Southwest and CES have yet to have a very successful, like totally online internet connection for users.
Right.
Yeah, CES is usually a disaster. This year, I think, was better than most, but each year they bring in the trucks and the extra antennas and get everything set up so that you can have more connectivity. But each year, something goes down. And I don't know, this sounds like a big bowl of fail to me. I can't imagine this is going to work.
I don't think there's enough cows in the United States to make this possible.
Is there any comment on the level of service that they're promising to everyone? I mean, are you going to like a half megabit or just barely dial-up speeds out of this?
Well, I mean, they're hoping to provide enough connectivity so that you can tweet and send out pictures. I mean, that's really what you'd like in an event like this, right? You want to generate the buzz. You want people to be excited about the event. And you could possibly do that, but, I mean, you're definitely not going to get enough bandwidth to stream anything for a consistent amount of time. Now, what you can do, if you're dealing with 700 access points, you turn the power on those access points way, way, way down so that each one only serves a very small area. But even so, when you're dealing with that many people in that small of a space, there's really no technology that can get around the laws of physics.
Why wouldn't they just why provide this at all? Why not have everyone rely on their own data connections with their cellular providers? Is this something that like is AT&T working with them on this, or what's the upside for them outside of giving a good experience? Like anyone cares about that.
Right. Well, I mean, the upside is they look like a forward-looking organization. I mean, you want to provide people Wi-Fi. And theoretically, if people are using the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi range, you can get much, much better service because there's 3 channels in the 2.4 gigahertz range. There's 23 channels in the 5 gigahertz range. And because it's unlicensed spectrum, you can do a lot more creative use of microcells to actually increase the amount of throughput people can get. Now,
you know what I find really interesting is how this is exactly the opposite of what they wanted to do at the inauguration. Because at the inauguration, they were trying to prevent people really from sending a lot of photos and doing a lot of text messaging because they were trying to save bandwidth for actual phone calls and emergencies and things like that. So it's interesting that now they're like, we're going to provide Wi-Fi so you guys can share as much media as you possibly want. But I'm wondering how that's going to either free up more space for phone call communications, or if it's just going to be, if that part of the deal will be bad.
Yeah, I wonder if that's part of it, because I know the Ars Technica article says they were testing at 20 meg down, 20 meg up synchronous. They knew that was going to go down once you start to get people turning on their phones. But their guess was if 100% of the people didn't have gadgets going at the same time, that they were going to be able to handle it. They were confident. It'll be interesting to see if they are. But the other thing here is they're trying to reduce interference, right? So if you allow everybody to just run their own cameras, run their own data points, all of a sudden it doesn't work for anybody because you have no control over the system. And what they're trying to attempt here is let's say no other interference going on except the interference we're providing through Wi-Fi. Give everybody who has a ticket free access. There's no password. You just log on, you get Wi-Fi instantaneously, and that means that they can at least try to control the experience and make sure they have good bandwidth, not just for the folks in the seats, but for the folks in the press area, for the people who are actually running the game and need to communicate with each other. Clears up that air for emergency signals and all of that. And Father Robert, you're saying that you can't get around the laws of physics. I'm curious, like, let's say it all goes well and they keep people from turning on their wireless cameras and their MiFi hotspots and their iPhones because they get good Wi-Fi. What else could go wrong?
Well, unfortunately, when you're dealing with unlicensed spectrum, it only takes one device. Well, let's be realistic. It takes a half dozen devices to really screw up the air. If you've got a phone that has been hacked to operate in frequencies that it's not supposed to operate, and it doesn't have the proper frequency filters, the cut filters, what will happen is it essentially acts like a signal jammer. If you remember back to the early days of Wi-Fi when geeks like me were hacking access points and you found software switches where you could suddenly turn up the power of the output to like 100 milliwatts. And it sounded great, but all you were really doing was jamming the airwaves. Well, that's the problem of physics that you can't get around, which is it's a shared spectrum. It's not like everyone has a direct connection to the outbound router. You're using the same wireless space. So, if you have people who are not playing well, it destroys experience for everyone in the area.
So here's what I think is interesting, is you're talking about the technological achievement, which I think is interesting to see how far it's developed. But also, you mentioned that one of the biggest problems you're looking at is they hope that not everyone will be using their devices at the same time. And in that regard, you almost have a sociological experiment happening. And I wonder how far the science has advanced on monitoring the way people tend to use their devices. Is there a particular point during every football game that you're like, oh, this happens, is when everyone gets on? And are they, I wonder if they're making any decisions about the program to mitigate how basically shaping the human traffic in addition to the network traffic.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think their best guess is probably that not everybody has a cell phone. Not everybody carries a cell phone, even though maybe the majority do. So that alone would probably keep you from having 100% usage.
It's like the bathroom on an airplane. The one time that you don't want to be using the internet in a stadium is when a timeout gets called or when there's a foul on the play. Because at that moment, if you think about it, a football game is really only a couple of minutes of activity surrounded by a lot of waiting. And in that waiting, people are going to naturally, like they've become prone to do, pull out their phones and check their email, check their tweets, see if the last tweet got any traction, was retweeted. It's sort of human nature now, right? So I'm down with Brian. I think this is a sociological experiment that they can look at later on. They can actually filter through this data to find out where the spikes were in usage. And I'm betting it's going to be at halftime when everyone's going to want to send pictures.
It's like go big or go home. If you're going to do 30,000 simultaneous connections, just do 73,208 simultaneous connections. Just see how that goes.
Exactly.
Just cover your bases. Sorry, I know that's a baseball metaphor. We're talking about football.
Well,
I don't know
I like
what
the baseball
appropriate
thing
metaphor would be.
Because we're also
Cover your end zone.
This is going to help us bust up the laws of physics here. This is something that I brought in a while back for This Week in Enterprise Tech. This is actually an access point, but it's not a regular one. It's 24 radios that has a specially designed RF reflector inside of it that divides the area around it into different parts. So it's physically separating the beams of RF that go into different devices. The cool thing about a solution like this is these have been specifically designed for environments like a stadium where you have a lot of people in a very small area. So I talked to the people at Xeris, and they were saying how they have set up stadiums in the past. And whereas the Superdome is using between 700 to 950 access points, this could do the same job with about 50.
Will they also be vacuuming up the popcorn and the leavings from the tailgating parties as well?
Of course, that comes with it. It's a very expensive
also start beeping if there's a fire. It's really helpful. You get the children out of the house.
Amazing.
You can also make a pancake inside of it.
Bacon pancakes.
You could wear it in a rainstorm. It becomes a very nice
That's just
hat.
crazy. That is just crazy.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Now they're using Cisco series switches and wireless controllers. Are you familiar with those at all, Father Robert?
Yes. So basically all of the wireless gear from Cisco and HP, Avaya, the big players, they work the same way in that the AP itself is it's a dumb device. They need to be plugged into a controller, which looks like a big switch. And then the switch will actually communicate with the various nodes that are plugged into it to find out how to optimally set itself. It's a fascinating part of the process. They speak about it very briefly when they say that they're going to be doing real-time spectrum analysis of the Superdome, where they're going to have people walking around with these little scopes looking at what areas are congested, and then the controller can adjust each access point to either increase or decrease the power to sort of optimize the number of people it can serve.
And then after the game,
That's
is this
really
all
cool.
getting ripped out? I mean, is this just temporary for Sunday?
I would not be surprised if this was a huge sponsorship thing, and so these access points are probably in very visible areas around the Superdome, which means
lots
if
of
they
branding.
leave them there, they're going to get stolen.
Verizon apparently paid for the installation of a lot of this stuff, so I don't know if that means they'll leave it, but
Yeah. But that's pretty much all I want to talk about the Super Bowl. Are we done with that pigskin thing?
I'm actually more excited about the Wi-Fi, how well the Wi-Fi is going to do, if this like big gargantuan attempt is going to work or not. I'm cheering for it. I really am. I'm like, I hope it works really well. I can't wait to hear the report. We've got Leo's there, so we're going to find out from him whether it worked or not.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking we're going to be pushing up to the time that Leo would be in the Superdome. I'm wondering if our incredibly talented producer might be able to contact him and see if we could get a video stream at some point.
Lovely and
That'd
talented
be
Chad
amazing.
Johnson.
Lovely and
I
talented.
got to figure they're shutting that down, though. I mean, they can't be letting people just stream the video, can they, from the Super Bowl? They've got to be restricting that.
Oh, you're assuming they're doing proper security policy. I mean, no.
Well, they did say they were going to be wandering around, so who knows?
Yeah.
One way to find out.
We'll try it. We'll try it. So everyone, please, right now, tweet to @LeoLaporte and tell him that we need him on the stream.
Because he's not
start
on
of his
vacation
time.
or anything, trying to enjoy himself.
Off to a great start, Padre. Well done, sir.
Show title, fired. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Because we've actually got a much bigger story than the big game. And that is maybe the possible kind of hopeful, probably not resurgence of Research in Motion, now Blackberry.
There's hope.
Hope.
There's hope now.
And so we heard this announcement last week. It was sort of waited on with bated breath. We had heard some things about BlackBerry 10, about the operating system, how much it had advanced, that the devices that they were going to release actually looked decent. I'll even say sexy. Now we know. We know that BlackBerry OS 10 has a few key features, including BlackBerry Flow, which allows multitasking on the device. It has BlackBerry Balance, which does profile switching. So you can have one device that switches between, say, business use and personal use. It offers BlackBerry Messenger, an upgraded version that adds video messaging as well as screen sharing. So you can now show someone else what you're doing on your phone, which I think there's a lot of promise there. And BlackBerry Remember, which is note-taking, which should be compatible with Evernote and Outlook and some of the more usable note suites. We've got pricing and availability, $200 with contract, $599 unsubsidized.
That's not exactly finalized, actually. Carriers have not made their individual announcements yet, so we may
This is a
see some
guess.
variation, but it should be $200 at all the major carriers in the U.S.
$200.
Sorry to interrupt.
Of course, $149 with a 3-year contract in Canada because Canada is weird. I said it there. What you gonna
Canada's
do?
pretty cool, though, despite being weird.
I just lost Canada. And available February 5th in the U.S., February 10th in Canada. Carried on all 4 carriers, right? AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Now, the big deal here is the hardware. And we've brought in some what is this? Sexiness?
I don't know if I'd call it exactly sexy, but it's pretty nice looking, I would say. It's certainly a big step up, I think, from what we've got before. So I've got it here in my hand. I think I'm holding it in the appropriate position. Here we go. We ready for this? Coming out of the sleeve. Bada bing. Okay, so this is the Z10. Yeah, all right. Some
Lovely.
catballs here in the audience. So I can give you a couple of the gestures quickly. So this is basically the multitasking feature, effectively. So it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in the browser, let's say, and you swipe up, and it brings any application to this minimized window like that. So if I launch something else, Docs to Go, and then minimize that. So now I can hop back and forth pretty quickly, which is nice. And these apps keep running in the background. So this is true multitasking. But the big thing they're talking about is called peak and flow. So if you swipe up and hold it, in theory... Great, now it's not going to work. There you go. On the left, you can see these listings of notifications effectively saying I've got 251 unread tweets, 4 Facebook messages, so on and so forth. And if I want to see them, I go to the right, and bada bing, we're now in the hub. So this is the all-seeing, all-conquering portal for every bit of messaging that you could possibly ever consume on this phone. brought in here. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, BBM, email, text messages, even system updates will pop in here as a message, which meant for me this thing was just like a spinning wheel, just constantly going, a little bit too noisy. But you can filter. You can go on the left and pick whatever you want to, text messages or BBMs or whatever you like. So that's pretty much it. I give you a little bit more. I mean, so on the background, we've got this kind of plasticky background that comes off. But, ultimately, it's a nice piece of hardware. It's a big, big step up over what we've seen before. BB10 is a huge step forward over BB7. Here you are, sir.
Oh, I'm touching it.
Yeah.
Feel the power.
It's just not exactly a revolution in any way. The gestures are nice for sure, and I think BlackBerry Hub would be a great tool for somebody who gets a small number of messages over a lot of different services. But for someone like me who gets a lot of messages on a lot of services, it was just very quickly impossible to keep up with everything that's going on in there, unfortunately. But, app selection is a little bit limited, but for a new OS, it's pretty good. They're lacking Netflix and Hulu and a couple big ones, but they've got Dropbox, they've got Box, they've got Hockey Night in Canada as well. So again, for the Canadians, you can be very happy about that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for sure. It's certainly not the amazing return to form that we might have hoped that RIM, now BlackBerry, would be able to deliver to us, but I think it's a really good step, and I think it's enough to keep the BlackBerry faithful for a little bit longer.
Right.
But what about Alicia Keys?
We've brought Alicia Keys back to the fold, I'm happy to say. Despite the fact that she has an iOS-exclusive app, and despite the fact that she sang next to Steve Jobs for the iTunes launch, Alicia Keys is now the, creative officer?
Creative director.
Creative director,
person.
right.
Global creative director
Thank
for
you,
BlackBerry.
thank you. You never want to leave off a global in someone's title. So she and also Neil Gaiman are going to be helping out to kind of raise the street cred of BlackBerry a little bit, which I think ultimately, couldn't hurt.
Neil Gaiman. I didn't hear about that.
Neil Gaiman has signed on. He's sold his soul to RIM, now BlackBerry.
People in the chat room want to see the keyboard, the on-screen keyboard here.
Yeah, so I can do a little bit of typing here if you want. Basically, let's see if I can create a note or a document. Go in this crash log here that I had to create before. So, edit. Give me a keyboard. There we go. So it's got this great predictive text that is a lot like SwiftKey on Android, if you've ever used that. So I can type
flicking,
H.
Right?
It does make a clicky noise if you turn it on.
No, the flicking of words up into the...
Yes. So I typed H. I meant to type HE, but I actually hit HR. But you can see it says hello over the L. So I'm going to swipe up, and bingo, it puts in hello. And now it's suggesting everyone, so I can just swipe up from E and get everyone.
You just keep on going until the whole letter's written?
Yeah, let's see what kind of thing I can write here without actually typing anything. How everyone else has to...
I like how it's actually going to change the way that people are writing, because you're going to be like, oh, that sounds like a good word. I'll use that instead. I predicted that word. Why not?
This is amazing. This is a revolutionary advance.
Veronica,
this isn't the first keyboard.
This is how the robots win. Okay, I'm just saying how it starts.
Let me just place a general question here. Who here has ever changed the word they're trying to type based on the prediction of the phone? Just said, I don't want to put the real word. Real word. Let's just do
When
this.
it autocorrects on there, I'm just like,
It's close enough.
That's a pretty good sentence considering I didn't mean to type any of that, and it just sort of suggested all of it. I don't know where that came from.
Ryan was writing something on his iPhone today, and it corrected it to like hello to Hodor.
That's actually pretty good. Even you typed a significant sentence in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I did the the Red Fox jumps over the lazy dog thing. It took me about a little over 10 seconds on this to type that out, which isn't too bad. I was a little bit quicker in SwiftKey. I did back-to-back. I think it was just under 10 seconds in SwiftKey, but it's pretty good. The thing is, if you use SwiftKey, you can just kind of hit the space bar, and the suggested word that it thinks you're going to use is always right in the middle, which is nice, so you can kind of get used to looking there. Here you have to actually look down and follow your thumbs, which takes a little bit of, a different way of thinking. So if you're used to touch typing and not looking down, you actually have to look down here a little bit more, which takes a little bit of getting used to. So I still like SwiftKey better, but this is by far the best stock keyboard in any mobile operating system, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this. I mean, there's going to be a lot of buzz about the hardware because it's actually, we were talking about this before the show, it's not that it leapfrogs all the competition out there, but it does look a lot better than anything BlackBerry has ever put out before.
Yeah, I certainly put them... up to date anyway. They're current now. They didn't go ahead by any means. But the one thing lacking, of course, was a QWERTY keyboard. I think a lot of people were really hoping that there would be a QWERTY device, and Brim was kind of being a little cagey that we would see the new QWERTY device, but they didn't say when we would actually get to buy it. So now we know the Q10 is coming, but probably not until April. That will be basically this device with a keyboard. We still don't know all the details of the internals on that guy, but a 3.1-inch display instead of the 4.2 on here. But that'll have the traditional, clicky keyboard that you've come to experience, a lot like the one in the Bold 9900. Feels like a really nice device. In fact, the metal bars that go across the display are actually integrated to the chassis, so it's got a really good rigidity, too, for twisting. I think it'll be a nice phone, but again, you've got to wait another 2 months at this point.
All right. Now, let me ask an open question to the panel, and that is, does this save BlackBerry? I mean, does this hold on to the people who are still using BlackBerries? Might this even get a few people back in the enterprise who want a more secure platform for communications? Or does this just get them to a level playing field with, say, Windows Phone, Android, and iOS?
Nobody wants that one?
Wow.
We're trying not to talk with each other.
I'll go first. I think this stems the tide. It doesn't turn the tide. So it may keep BlackBerry from just like continuing to slide downhill. I think it will actually, because Tim said it already. This is going to appeal to current BlackBerry fans. They're going to be very excited about this, and it may even bring a few more Alicia Keys back into the fold. But I don't think anyone looks at Samsung Galaxy S and then looks at the BlackBerry and says, "Oh, I want that more." The iPhone users, the Samsung users, there's not enough here to turn their heads yet, I don't think.
So what
I think
would
it
take?
speaks volumes. Like Roger Chang, of course, our friend and my producer on Texilla, he was a BlackBerry user for years, and he recently went over to Android. So I don't know if this is enough to bring him back. He just signed another 2-year contract. So, but I don't think the hopes of something better on BlackBerry was enough to keep him there even.
I think some people might come back when the Q10 comes out, because I think a lot of people left, around the time of the Bold, and they went to the iPhone or something like that, and they just have been swearing at the virtual keyboard for the past, couple of months. I think when the Q10 comes out, we'll see some people kind of making the transition back to BlackBerry, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be a flood.
There is something to be said about a physical keyboard. I mean, I still miss it, even though the keyboard
there's
on
not. They're stupid, and nobody should use them anymore. Thank good. Set fire to the physical keyboards, unless it's a full-size device that you could do this on.
Well, what do you really feel about that, Brian?
I don't understand this nostalgia for physical keys, because it's like the best advancement from the iPhone is the fact that it corrects, that it encourages sloppy writing. As long as you pretty much get it right, it does for the most part a pretty good job of getting out what you want, and it does it astonishingly fast. You don't have to go back and fix it most of the times. And
You're
yes, there's
nuts.
the occasional hilarious autocorrects.
I do not agree with that statement. That's okay.
I'm telling you, man, like physical keys, I try to use them as BlackBerry. It's like, you mean I have to hit every single key and I have to do it right every time? Screw that, man. I hate physical keyboards. I want autocorrective predictive text for these physical keyboards, so that on my desktop, so I can just sort of mash the keys and get it pretty much right, and there it is.
I have to say, so I understand the enjoyment of a physical keyboard. Although I think my iPhone is getting dumber over time, not smarter with guessing what I want to say. I've had much better luck with actually dictating text to it rather than trying to type in very quickly. So maybe it's just I'm getting lazy, but it has not been good for me lately. And of course, without that, we wouldn't have Damn You Autocorrect, which is hilarious.
I understand we have a special visitor on the line right now. We're going to oh, my goodness.
Wow. Whoa.
Wait, is that Mr. Laporte in the Superdome?
That's amazing.
Just before his arrest.
Can't hear a thing you're saying.
And you're live in 3, 2, and you're go. Go for Leo.
Leo, we need you to do the ad reads.
Being there.
Hello, but I can't.
So he's saying he can't hear a thing that we're saying because it's so loud in the Superdome.
He also doesn't have earphones in.
He appears to be
Right.
in an arena, perhaps at a concert of some sort, maybe.
Grateful Dead.
Maybe it's the New Kids on the
Also,
Block reunion that he's seeing.
Second,
Could
he's
be.
able to report massive success on the Wi-Fi.
I was about to say that.
How could I? Jesse Jackson.
Did you say something about Jesse Jackson?
I think he just did.
I think he did.
Okay, chat realm,
give him your-
animated GIF time. Actually, Chad, if you could get with Leo and ask him to send us a Vine.
A Vine of what's going on?
I think he is sending us a Vine.
He's sending
Oh, it is. See, it's only in 6-second spurts, you see.
And Leo is done.
Well, I don't think that could have gone any better, really.
No,
I mean,
no,
that
I
was-
think that's
that
pretty
was
much
just
the
amazing.
most.
The
And,
video, the quality looked pretty good.
but that stadium is
minus
almost
the audio
empty at the
part.
moment. There's nobody there.
Yeah, what time does the game actually start? Actually?
It doesn't. It starts when we finish. They're waiting.
Oh, it's good of them.
Yeah.
That's really good of them.
Yeah, of course. That's
Theoretically, there'd be more usage now than there might be like when the actual play is going on.
Very true.
play.
Yeah, the Shakespeare play that everyone's
Is this
super good.
scripted?
Once the theater and the round begins, yes.
Does mother know that you wear her drapes? No. Okay, hold on. Wait, I want to get back to the Blackberry 10 here because Shwood, I just realized I'm pissed because I do like the physical keyboard. I miss a physical keyboard. Of course, I mean, yeah, it's small, but you know what I can do with a physical keyboard that I can't do with a virtual? I can type without looking at the screen.
You can do what?
I can type without looking at the screen.
How often do you do that? Okay, I'm not going to say that I have done this, but theoretically, if my eyes had to be somewhere, like maybe on the road, while I was typing on an iPhone, maybe theoretically, I had the ability to type out even without looking at the screen. And I thought, and in fact, like I actually could see a future where where it gets so good at reading your general movements where it's like you don't even see a keyboard anymore. Instead, you just visualize the keyboard and start moving your thumbs where you think the keys ought to be, and it gets so good at tracking your personal quirks that it gets it right.
That's what happens a lot in chat realm, which would explain many of the comments that we get. But no, with a physical keyboard, I would never text while driving, but I have texted while giving a homily before, and it comes in very useful. It's underneath my alb. Just.
You could say you're serving twice the people at the same time. Is that what you tell the Jesuits?
I'm multitasking with God's grace.
Brilliant.
All right.
There's our title.
Okay, good. You know what? But before this gets even more off the rails, why don't we go back to Leo, who has a few things to say about one of our sponsors.
Enjoying this week in tech. I am, of course, in New Orleans at the Super Bowl, but and rooting for my team. They're going to take the field in a little bit, but I thought I'd come back and talk about something that is kind of near and dear to my heart. The loved ones in your life. It is Valentine's Day in a couple of weeks, less than a couple of weeks, 11 days. Are you ready, guys, to give? Let me tell you something. I used to get frozen on these gift-giving occasions. Have you experienced this? Because I knew I was gonna get the wrong thing. It was hard for me. And so then you either get them something stupid at the last minute, or you give her a vacuum cleaner, and then you're sleeping on the couch for a year. I can cut through this mess with ice.com. They come back here every Valentine's Day because they know they can help us geeks with Valentine's Day. This is beautiful, and it is very good quality jewelry at a price anyone can afford. There's a wide range. They have very expensive pieces. If it's time for that engagement ring, and what is it they say, 3 months salary, or if it's just you kind of like somebody and you want to give her a little something. They're all there in very good prices, very high quality. Now, I am not a jewelry expert, but my honey is, and she loves this stuff. In fact, this is not my honey. This is Shannon. She's agreed to model some of the beautiful items. They're not paying for mall locations. They're not brick and mortar. They're online, so you get the savings. And we have a special deal for the Twit audience. But let me show you some of the beautiful jewelry available at ice.com. Give you an idea. 3.5 carat. This is a beautiful white sapphire, a sterling silver heart-shaped pendant. It would be a great gift to say, hey, I kind of like you. And I think Valentine, will you be my Valentine? Now, normally it's $115 with our Twit discount, $86. Want to spend a little more? How about the 1 carat Morganite and diamond 10K pink gold earring? She'll think you spent a packet of money on this one. It's normally $225. Our Twit Valentine's Day price is $186. How about this 1 carat created emerald and diamond 10K white gold ring? Got to be careful with the ring, guys. That could say something. Maybe you want to say something. Normally $295, just $221. Have a successful and memorable, if you know what I mean, Valentine's Day. She's going to love this. She's going to love you. 25% off most items, plus free guaranteed delivery by Valentine's Day, as long as you order by February 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern, okay? So don't put this off. You know what? Do it now while you're listening to Twit. Go to ice.com/twit. Ice.com/twit. And start browsing around. Take a look. Find something. I guarantee you she will love it. Easy to return, though, if she doesn't. And that's nice, too. That's a good peace of mind. 25% off most items plus free guaranteed delivery by Valentine's Day. But you've got to do it now, okay? And this is available, of course, for a limited time. Some restrictions apply. We love ice.com. We know you will, too. Ice.com/twit. Let me tell you, guys, just a hint. Make your honey happy, okay? All right. I have learned. Now we get right back to This Week in Tech, guys.
Thank you, Leo. And
the sultry tones of
the sultry tones. That's right. And as we were discussing during the break, no, Leo doesn't trust us with the jewelry.
Yeah, I would have loved to be a hand model. Maybe next time we can arrange that.
Well, if you come back, we'll let you hold the ice.
I did want to, before we move on from keyboards, Brian, have you heard of an app called Flexi?
No. What does Flexi do?
Because you were talking about just kind of randomly throwing your thumbs at the display. And what Flexi does is basically it learns how you type, and you can type anywhere on the display, and it will figure out what you mean to say.
Yes. Oh, dude, what environment is this in? Is it on
it's
iOS?
iOS right now is kind of a test app, and then I think there's an Android beta as well.
Doing it right now.
Fleksy. I had to look that up while we were watching Leo do his thing.
Amazing.
So that's all.
Problem solvers.
Tuning out for the remainder of the broadcast.
That's right. We've lost Wood. He'll be flexing himself. Ooh. Show title. All right, let's move on. We've got, it's a message that you've heard a few times, but maybe it's happening this time, and that is we are in a post-PC era. Maybe, probably, not really, but, good tagline. This comes from GigaOM, talking about the IDC and their report that 52.5 million tablets shipped in the fourth quarter of 2012 compared to 89.8 million PCs. And that means for the first time that tablet sales are over half of PC sales. Tim, how do you break this down? Is this just the holiday burst? Is this going to be a trend? Are we eventually going to see parity here? How quickly are we going to see the quote-unquote end of the PC era?
Well, it's definitely a trend. I don't think that you can deny it any longer. Exactly what that trend looks like through the rest of 2013, I don't know. I mean, definitely we've seen some acceleration of tablet sales and mobile device sales because of the holidays. So I think things will temper out a little bit throughout the rest of the year. But ultimately, it is a trend that's going to continue. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, we look at our traffic patterns and we definitely see the shift from the desktop to the mobile device. For us, it's a very real thing. We've been dealing with this for over a year now, effectively, in terms of the post-PC era, quote-unquote, in terms of content consumption anyway. So I definitely think it's a real thing, and it has a lot of strong implications for the industry. Tablets are a lot cheaper than your average PC and your average laptop, and how exactly our company is going to continue to show the growth that they need to. Obviously, Apple is doing okay, but others, maybe not so much.
See, I just always wonder about these kind of numbers because there's always a question of how much are they playing with the figures here? Because yes, tablet sales are really accelerating. They're growing way more than PC sales are growing, but that's just because PC sales are so mature. We sell between 360 to 400 million PCs a year. Tablet sales are actually starting to catch up with that, but at the same time, there are many more people without tablets than are without PCs. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're in a post-PC era. It just means that more people who may need a PC already have a PC.
Yeah, the question... Go ahead.
And you're right. The term post-PC implies that we are done with the PC and now we've moved on to tablets, which just simply isn't the case. You think of everyone who has a tablet, they all, and I'm going to say 90%, they all have it in addition to a PC. What we're seeing is an opportunity for increased fidelity with your interactions with your online data and the way you communicate with the world. There are some things that the PC will always be superior for. I mean, right now, for doing this live Skyping in with the live switching on here, Photoshop, video editing, video games. I mean, all of these things, we're not going to lose these things. And the very nature of the term post-PC implies that, which is a bit annoying. But if you think about it in terms of we're just seeing more options and people taking advantage. People like to interact with their data so much that they're buying a second and a third way to do so at all times.
Right.
I definitely agree with the idea that the idea of running everything in the cloud is probably what we're moving towards more than anything else, and keeping the PC, keeping the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor as an interface method for that. It's still going to be more comfortable for most people than just having a tablet in your hand. So I think these two things go hand in hand together. I don't think we're at a point where people are just using tablets. I think it's a point where people, like you said, are starting to have them as secondary devices that they use to interact with the data that they primarily input via a desktop environment.
I really like that. I like that point of view that we're more than anything about which devices we're using. This is about where we're actually storing the information that we're manipulating. It used to be that everything was stored on your local device and you had control over it. We're getting far more accustomed to being able to put it into a place that is accessible by multiple devices at the same time from multiple locations. So if anything, it's the post-local storage era.
Which is still disconcerting to me. You know, I've got a RAID at home, and I've got a lot of stuff on there going all the way back to my early days of computing. And, you know, the idea that at some point that's going to live on someone else's box that I don't get to manage is disconcerting to me. Maybe that makes me an old fuddy-duddy. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Well, now, which is greater, your fear of the information living somewhere else, or, for example, my fear that, you know, if this house burns down, there's an awful lot of data that's just on one or two hard drives in this house. And it's like, imagine all your photos, all your videos just wiped out.
Yeah, yeah.
Even then, like at this point, I mean, I think conservatively, I have, 3 or 4 terabytes of video data spanning over the last 4 years. It's just on 1 or 2 drives. And it's like, I don't see any way to migrate that to the cloud yet. If there was, affordably, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Well, you can send a drive, I believe, to a lot of the services to actually get that data uploaded from their end. I think some of them still do that, which is great. But I think, you know, it's all about having your data in multiple locations, you know, because having 3 or 4 redundant drives in your house is fine, except for the fact that, you know, if your house burns down, then suddenly you're SOL. So it's about like having a physical drive somewhere outside of your primary location, having a cloud backup, just in case, and then having the stuff at home that you are accessing most frequently.
Yeah, and I think we're moving towards a situation where it's all about form factor, right? And data does become ubiquitous. And whether you're a Tim Stevens up there in New England who runs his own home cloud server and doesn't trust the man with his data, I think that's fine. That's perfectly acceptable.
Old man, yeah.
Wait, are we talking about Patrick Norton?
Get off my lawn! Get off my internets, kids.
But there's safe ways to do that and reasonable ways to do that. But you still want to be able to access that on devices. And I still think back to this article I read back in the late 90s about how the future of computing was form factor over function. So you have the device that works for the situation you're in, whether it's you need a keyboard and a screen, or whether you need a portable keyboard and a screen, or you just need a screen with a touch interface or a smaller device. And we're almost there. So I don't think it's a post-PC era. It's just an entirely different era of computing.
Now, this is not on the dock, so I'm kind of going off the rails, as if the show was on the rails previously. But
hold on.
Interesting point brought up here, which is a big explosion of mobile devices was, in a way, a very big way, enabled by the use of what we're calling cloud storage, be it private cloud or public cloud. There are stories right now. There are a few issues that are before the Supreme Court debating whether or not data put into the cloud can really be private, whether or not law enforcement needs a warrant to actually look at that data after 180 days, whether or not they can look at email that you have, quote unquote, abandoned on Google's or Yahoo's or Microsoft's server. If we don't sort that out, if we don't figure out a privacy policy that makes sense, that protects the rights of people who have put their data in the cloud, does that put the kibosh on the explosion of mobile devices?
I suspect that, the science fiction author and friend of mine, Andrew Main, said a quote that really transformed my thinking, and it's kind of changed my life. He said that technology outpaces legislation. So when you ask a question like this, you think in terms of like, what can we do to protect the rights of people? Whatever it is you could do, whatever law you're thinking about writing, whatever action you're thinking your Congress should take, by the time it gets done, there will already be encryption services that take care of it faster. And so I agree that this is an issue. I agree that we have evolving attitudes about what it means to own your data, but I don't know that it just seems like whatever happens by the time whatever law is passed will already be on to something else. It'll be a new set of problems.
I think we've also seen that people will, in general, choose convenience over security. I mean, if indeed security was a concern, then Sony should have nobody playing a PlayStation 3 game online right now. But yet, they rebounded very quickly, and I don't think anybody's really thought about that over the past couple of weeks, months, years. So I think that people are very willing to forget about those sorts of concerns, which is, I think that is a concern in itself.
Well, it's interesting to see what people are willing and not willing to allow. Like, for example, if you're going to be gaming online, you just know that your credit card information is now online somewhere. And maybe it's taken care of properly, maybe it's not. I mean, we've had a breach in various online gaming vendors, and that has exposed consumer information. That seems to be okay. I'm willing to expose my financial information. However, people get really, really upset if you even suggest that law enforcement has the right to go into, say, a Yahoo account that you haven't opened in a year and just go through all your email. That's actually in law. They have that power. They have that right, but people don't seem to be up in arms about that. So I'm always puzzled by what sets people off and what doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a poser. Well, and that email thing, it depends on the court, right? I mean, it's not quite as cut and dried as they can go in. You can also challenge it, and people are challenging it, and different judges are approaching it with different ways. So it's far from settled, but it's important how they end up settling it. This is something that's going to have to go to the Supreme Court.
I love the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. All right. It doesn't.
Let's get back on the rails just for a while. A tangent to this is Michael Dell deciding that maybe he wants to take Dell back. There's a story in Bloomberg about how Michael Dell would combine his 15.7% stake in Dell along with $1 billion of his own personal funds and perhaps investment from, say, Microsoft in order to take control of Dell. It's a very early on story. It's a very speculative story. Tim, I know you've been following this a little bit. What would he do with it? If he were to take Dell back in a post-PC world, what exactly would he do with this thing?
I mean, obviously, that's the big question. I mean, this is a great time to buy Dell. If you want to buy Dell, I mean, presumably the board of Dell is thinking, wow, things are not looking too good for this industry. Maybe we should have an exit strategy. And this could be their exit strategy. But the question, what would Michael do with it? Because at this point, Dell has basically said, we're not going to make a smartphone. They tried, and they didn't do very good there. We haven't seen them really making a strong push onto the Windows RT-style tablet front, really. So they don't really have a strong direction when it comes to capitalizing on this shift toward tablets either. So really, they're a desktop, a laptop, enterprise, consumer sort of mix of sales at this point. And I don't see any strong direction to move into this mobile frontier we've been discussing for the past couple of minutes. So that's a good question. I mean, presumably he would have to launch some amazing tablet and or some amazing smartphone and try to recapture some of their lost prestige.
I mean, it sounds like he's trying to buy it back and give the money back to the shareholders, ironically. But it seems weird to invest $1 billion of your own, $1 billion plus, because it's $1 billion plus stock,
a lot from Microsoft,
into something that is not a growth industry.
Doesn't that just make you want to know what backroom arguments are going on? What vision for the company is he not able to fulfill right now to where he needs to leverage billions of his own money in order to get it back?
Didn't the dude get a Dell guy want to also help them rebrand and fix the company? So I guess they're taking all comers at this point. But, I would much rather see what would happen if John McAfee decided to take over.
That would be
I think that would be a much more interesting story.
Amazing.
Personally,
you think the ghost of Steve Jobs is just cackling at this right now? Because if you remember, Michael Dell was the one who said that Apple should just dissolve and give the shareholders back the money.
Yeah, that's basically what he's doing. I mean, he's not dissolving the company, but he's buying it back. He's essentially taking it semi-private so that he has control over its destiny. Now, there's a lot of backroom murmurs that are saying the only way this makes sense is if he thinks that the fundamentals are still strong, that he still thinks that enterprise is going to buy PCs for the foreseeable future, and he's concerned that the current setup of the company and the board is panicking. But still, I mean, that seems to be an awful lot of money to hedge against a panic.
Yeah, he's got to be thinking enterprise because there's really no direction that Dell can quickly move into right now without some major infusion of cash, which is what we're talking about. But even then, it's going to take them years to really move to a point where they can be like Lenovo, releasing phones and tablets and laptops and everything else. It seems like it's an interesting move. But, I mean, maybe they become like a white label brand for Microsoft or something like that. Maybe they make the next Surface, who knows?
Because that's an interesting thought, because Microsoft is putting some money behind this. And I think it's significant also that the argument that Michael Dell is making is that he needs the flexibility of not being publicly owned to compete and win in the marketplace.
True. And it should be noted that at this point, Apple does have enough cash reserves to buy Dell, give the money back to the shareholders, and wear it as a hat.
Pretty hat.
Pretty hat. Dude, you're getting a hat. All right, but continuing with our post-PC theme, we're talking about how 52.5 million tablets were sold in quarter 4 versus 29.9 million in quarter 4 2011. That's 75.3% growth year over year.
Healthy.
It's a incredibly healthy growth. Again, we won't see that in the years to come because the tablet market is slowly maturing. But there are some numbers out of the IDC that came in a NextWeb article that point out that there are some clear trends in the industry. First, iPad share right now is 53.6% with 22.9 million units sold in quarter 4 2011. That was in 2012. That's 50% above where they were last year. Samsung has 15.1% of the market with 7.9 million sold. That's a 263% growth year over year. Amazon is at 11.5% with 6 million units sold. That's 15.9% with 4.7 million sold in quarter 4 2011. That's a 26.8% growth. And Asus takes the 4th spot with 3.1 million units sold for 1.9%. God, that was really hard to get there, right?
Bravo, sir. Bravo to you.
I hate numbers. Numbers suck. But so what we're saying is there is Apple is not quite as dominant in the tablet market, but I mean, you can't say that, 22.9 million units is disappointing, right?
Yeah, Samsung kind of stepped up in the 4th quarter to take the lead in that sales quarter, but overall, looking at the year overall, Apple was definitely the dominant player. So everybody had a really, really good year for sure. And the big question now is what happens in 2013? Can they maintain this level of growth? I think that'll be pretty difficult to do personally.
Yeah. You know who doesn't have a level of growth?
Microsoft, yeah.
So we've got Surface RT sales. They're being really, really cagey about how they're phrasing it. They're talking about channel sales. They're saying that they sold 1.2 million units to the channel, which already doesn't sound great for a brand new product that was supposed to change the world, that they spent $1.6 billion on advertising. And the word is that only about half of that is actually making it out of the channels, only actually is making it into the hands of consumers. It's got a high return rate. There's no noticeable movement to restock right now. So it's not like Microsoft saying, oh, we sold so many of these that we need to get the orders out there in order to be able to replenish our supplies. Especially as we get into February, we're heading towards the Lunar New Year. This is where manufacturing in Asia shuts down. And so typically, if you were going to have a bump, the orders would have been in January. There are no orders from Microsoft.
Well, to be fair, as the article notes, I mean, the Kindle Fire HD had a similar situation. They had, unpurchased inventory going into the 2nd quarter as well.
Right.
So, and actually, I don't know. The RT has always struck me as a problematic device because it almost promised a true Windows experience in a tablet form, but it just it sounded like a half measure, and half measures rarely do well. When you got outside of the clock radio, virtually no mushy middle device has ever survived. And meanwhile, I'm actually genuinely excited about the full, what do they call it? The Surface Pro, which is a full PC in a form
Comes out
factor.
this week.
In fact, my mom, who is not very technical at all, she said, "You know what I want? I just want a really small, full computer that I could take with me. I have an iPad. I don't take it with me. I don't use it. I just want something small like an iPad, but a full computer." And I was like, "Well, guess what, Mom? Wait a few weeks, and you're in luck." I wonder if there's not an opportunity for a big surprise. I don't know how good it is because, of course, I haven't seen one. But as far as what the market, I suspect there maybe a significant amount of untapped demand for a quote-unquote real. For as much as we're talking about the post-PC era, I suspect that there are a lot of people who want a real PC in a tablet form.
But I'm guessing your mom means the RT, or at least what the RT can do, because it does Microsoft Office, it does email, and it also has all the tablet stuff, and it's keyboard, and it does real multitasking on the desktop. So what the Pro is better at is like, okay, somebody who wants to download and install their own apps and actually run Windows and take full advantage of Windows. I think you hit on it, Brian. The first part of what you're saying is Microsoft has a messaging problem, because it would almost be better if it didn't have the desktop Office part in RT, and it was just competing directly with Apple and Android on being a tablet. But because it has a little bit of the desktop, people start to get critical and say, well, I want the full desktop experience.
You know what, Brian? I think what your mom really wants actually is for you to call her more often.
I'm going to go right over there and watch a supremely great game.
That's what she told me last night anyway, yeah. That's right.
Snap.
There we go.
Snap,
Somebody
snap,
had to get
snap.
something in.
Yeah,
Bravo. Bravo.
It's really weird when I picture my actual mom in that scenario. Who might, in fact, be watching right now, Tom Merritt. Just FYI. There's that.
Hi, Mama Brushwood.
All right.
I just stopped by to say hi. I don't know what you're talking about.
Web9819 wants to know if the Surface RT is heading out to the desert to be laid to rest next to the Blackberry Playbook and ET.
I don't think it's quite that bad.
Not yet.
I mean, so if you look
Comparing
back,
the playbook. Ouch.
I always like to liken it back to when Microsoft got into console gaming. The original Xbox, everybody hated it when it came out. Didn't sell particularly well, wasn't well received. Everybody picked on it for being too big and too heavy. It wasn't what they wanted from a console gaming system. But then Microsoft learned a lot of lessons from that, came back with the 360, and it's now the dominant sales console in the US and in the world right now. So they learned a lot there, and presumably they could be on the same path. For Surface, this was the first step. I think we can all agree it wasn't exactly a very successful first step. Certainly these sales figures tend to point in that direction. But maybe this was the investment. Maybe this is just putting their toe in the water to see what Rev 2 looks like. And I'm kind of consuming or putting Surface and Surface Pro together as the first step. Maybe Generation 2 of the hardware will be significantly different and improved and everything that we want it to be.
Yeah, is it Xbox or Zune? That's kind of the big question.
Ooh.
That's a very good question.
And remember, the Xbox did not start off well.
No, not well at all.
No.
I liked it because I have kind of big hands, and that giant football controller was like perfect for me, but everybody else, not so much.
I liked it because I hacked it and turned it into a media center, but that's pretty
Good
much
reason to like it too.
That was the whole thing. Now let's actually go to revision 2.0 because we've got the Microsoft Surface Pro heading into users' hands in just a while. Now this is interesting because I think, again, you're right. Microsoft has a messaging problem here because people think, oh, Surface Pro, it's just like the Surface RT, except a little bit better. It's really an entirely different product.
Yeah.
It's a laptop. It's a laptop without the keyboard built into it. And there's a kerfuffle right now because, as The Verge reports, the Surface Pro is more like a laptop in that, yeah, when you have a laptop, part of the storage is going to be used by the operating system and all the bloatware that you load onto it. And so people are complaining already, even though it hasn't hit stores, that the 64-gigabyte version will only have 23 gigabytes of usable storage. Half of that's used by the operating system. A large part of it is used by a recovery partition that you can delete. But people are saying, wait a minute, if I buy a 32-gigabyte iPad, I get 32 gigabytes. Why isn't the Surface Pro the same?
And even if you compare it to the MacBook Air, the 11-inch or the 64-gig MacBook Air, that you lose about 20 gigs for system storage there, so you still get about 40 gigs of available space. Here with the 64-gig Pro, you get 23 gigs of available space, which is pretty poor. Yeah, why Microsoft didn't opt to put that recovery partition on a thumb drive or something like that to give you the option to, if you need to use it, it's there separately. I don't know, but to lose 40-odd gigs, I think it's about 46 gigs for the 128 gig version. I think it's 41 gigs, something like that for the 64 gig version. That is a significant chunk of space that you are giving up right out of the box.
Now, and that's a huge amount. Like even for the average consumer who doesn't really think about things like partitions and the amount of space that the apps that come built in are taking up, that's going to be noticeable for them. I think it's enough of a number that it's going to be noticeable for the average user, and that's going to be a major problem for them.
Okay, so this average user, though, is this an animal that we encounter as much nowadays as we did, say, 10 years ago? It just seems to me that the internet has made possible this dissemination of information where I feel like, maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I feel like most consumers are much more educated and they know what they're getting into. I mean, maybe in the early 90s, the marketing message held a lot of sway because that was your only point of data. But nowadays, we all know, we all check Yelp ratings before we go out. We all check reviews before we buy products. And I feel like if it's a problem that there's only, 20 gigs or whatever free, then people will know it and word will get out.
Well, would it
Is
bother
it
your
blown out
mom?
of proportion? Yeah, my mom. Always with your mom jokes, Belmont.
No, but honestly, I think it will. I think it still is an issue because I mean it annoys me, and I wouldn't exactly call myself like a typical consumer, but I think it's enough of a difference if you have to jump through hoops to get more storage, the storage that you rightfully deserve. Then I think that's going to be an issue.
And if Microsoft had put the recovery partition on a USB drive, which you can do yourself, you can put it on a USB drive and take back some of that space, everyone would have complained like, well, why is the recovery partition on a separate drive? And that drives up the cost of the machine. So they're kind of stuck in a no-win situation here. It's just I don't know. Maybe Windows 8 is just too darn big in the way they designed it to work on a tablet.
I think I have a solution. They should have put an optical drive in the tablet and then given you a DVD with the operating system on there. I think that's the way to go.
They could take all those old HD DVD externals that they never sold for the Xbox, make those work with the backup.
No,
It
what
does
they
seem
should
like
have
they
done.
could have. I'm sorry, real quick. It does seem like they could have, if they sensed this would be a PR problem when they shipped. It seems like they could have done something like offer a $20, $50 upgrade where it's like, and if you'd like, it ships, with the backup copy of the OS already removed and on this thumb drive for you to keep or whatever. Like it seems like this problem or this perception is blindsiding them, which would not be the weirdest thing for Microsoft to encounter, that they weren't ready for a public blowback about something.
What they really need to do is they need to develop an operating system that's lightweight, that's sort of Windows 8, but much reduced in functionality, and they could call it Windows 8 CE.
Embedded edition.
Embedded edition. Okay. That's enough of that. I really had enough of the Surface and the Surface Pro because I've got Leo over here, and again, I think he's coming in from the Super Bowl. He wants to do another ad. So, Chad, if we could go to the big guy and find out what he wants to share.
Pardon me, Leo Laporte here. I know I'm not supposed to be here, and this is in no way an indictment of the great job you're doing, Father Robert and Tom, Veronica. So nice to see you. How come you never come in when I'm around? But I do have to mention one of our fine sponsors, and because I use it every single day, they thought it'd be great if I told you about ShareFile.com. This is a Citrix product, and it is simply put, the best way to share files in business. You all know the problem. You want to share a file, first instinct, attach it to email. Wrong. Because anything, there's still people with 10 megabyte email inboxes. Am I right? So, you're going to send even one image from my Canon camera is 21 megabytes. I can't even. So, and it's also bad form to attach files. It wastes bandwidth. It's frankly not secure. It's not a good thing to do. So this is what I recommend. ShareFile.com, more than recommend, is what I use. For instance, I had to record a bunch of the radio show ahead of time because I wasn't going to be there today. What did I do? I put it in a folder, a designated folder on my hard drive. ShareFile syncs it automatically to a shared folder. Now, I already gave permission for the radio stations to access it, but if I hadn't, it's very simple to send them an email and says here's the file. There's an Outlook attachment. You're not giving them a file. You're giving a link, right? ShareFile stores that. It's encrypted. No one can get. It's HTTPS. No one can get access to it. And you fully control the file. You can say who can download it, how long they can have it, how many times they can download it, when they can download it. You get an email if you want notification that they have downloaded it. I have tried other file sharing systems, and frankly, it didn't work. Especially some of the radio stations, they were confused by it. With ShareFile, it's very simple. They see my logo. By the way, it's a beautifully designed logo page. They have a link to click. If it's a folder, they can download the whole file zipped, the whole folder zipped, or they can go into the folder and look at it. It couldn't be simpler. Very professional. It's worked really well for me, and I want you to try it. If you are sending drawings, attachments of any kind, if you're sharing files with clients, if you're sharing files with colleagues, ShareFile is a great solution. By the way, it's also cloud storage. They don't talk about this as that much, but it's just like any other cloud storage solution. With your ShareFile account, those files are synced automatically. You can see them anytime. You can log onto your ShareFile account on any computer. You could synchronize onto another computer if you want. They have Windows and Mac synchronizing, background synchronizers. You can even access it from a smartphone, and there's your stuff. So it's cloud storage plus the best way to share files. 30 days free. You can try it right now. I recommend you do if you go to sharefile.com and use our offer code TWIT. ShareFile. See at the top it says radio listeners. Click here. That's the way to do it. because then you can start your free 30-day trial. Just make sure you use the offer code TWIT if you would, so they know where you heard about it. And I thank you for your support. I thank them for their support. And now we continue with This Week in Tech. Sorry I couldn't be here, guys.
Thanks, Leo. You're here in spirit. Speaking of the spirit of things, we've got the spirit of the Grinch going on in Europe right now. I don't know if you guys have heard this article from Macworld where Apple is discontinuing the Mac Pro, at least in Europe. And the reason for this is that there is a new safety legislation that has passed that would require Apple to shroud all the fans inside the computer. Now, picture that. The fans inside the case need to be shrouded from people who might be stupid enough to open it and stick something into the fan. So I don't really understand why, but Apple is basically saying, look, we're not going to make this change to the lineup just to meet up with this ticky-tacky legislation. You've got until February 18th to order a new Mac Pro if you are in one of the affected European countries, and then it will be delivered by March 1st, which is the cutoff date. So a lot of people are saying, look, this is just because of the legislation, but there are some other voices that are looking at this as the next step in a gradual removal of the Mac Pro line. We haven't seen that much of an update over the last couple of years, basically nothing major since 2010. And so little of their profit is actually derived from the desktops that it almost makes sense for Apple to say, this is not worth our time. Now, open question to the panel. Is that something Apple can afford to do? I mean, again, tying back into the post-PC story, if the desktop is becoming less important, can Apple now say, look, if you want a Mac, just get a laptop. It'll be the same thing.
We've actually been waiting for them to make some kind of a, sorry, BJ.
No.
To make some kind of an announcement, either to completely redesign the thing or to basically discontinue it. And they did, of course, just make the announcement that they're going to be bringing Mac production to the U.S. for an unknown brand of Mac. We presumed it would be this one because the cost would be so much lower, for bringing any other Mac production here. But yeah, I mean, if that's largely standard componentry in that device versus the iMac and the other things that are much more bespoke, and so they can charge more for it and have a higher premium for it. So yeah, if they were going to kill something that's making them less money, that'd be the way to do it. And if they wanted to, it probably wouldn't cost them more than a couple of bucks to actually update the thing, to put in the shroud to keep little Timmy from getting his fingers cut off when he tries to take the back of the case off. And
I don't know. This seems like a very Apple way to enact legislation, to affect the laws overseas, especially, let's say it's one of their less profitable items. The problem is what Apple really sells is an ecosystem. And when you sell an ecosystem, you have to sell the whole ecosystem. So I would be shocked if this is part of their play to actually shut down this whole division. But it does seem like a very Apple thing for them to stuff it in the face of some BS legislation that they don't approve of.
Passive aggressive
cancellation. It would make me sad if they did, because it's really their last upgradable device at this point. I mean, it's one of the last ones that you can actually really open up and upgrade at your own will. So that would make me sad.
Back in June, Connie Guglielmo told 9 to 5 Mac that new designs of the Mac Pro are in the works and will likely be released in 2013. David Pogue was told by an executive that new models and new designs were underway. Tim Cook emailed a reader and said, we didn't have a chance to talk about a new Mac Pro today, talking about WWDC last year, but don't worry, we're working on something really great for later next year. So I don't know what else Apple can do to rest the fears that they're going to get rid of the Mac Pro, except for come out with a new Mac Pro. And what it looks to me happened in Europe is they're not ready to release the new design yet, and the current Mac Pros don't conform to European law, so they've got to pull them off the shelves until they come out with the new Mac Pro. My guess is by the end of 2013, there'll be new Mac Pros. They'll have the shroud. They'll go on sale in Europe.
But what about that? I mean, if you look at the Mac Rumors reporting on the quarter sales, the Q4 2012, Mac Pro sales are flat. And that's just in revenue. In profits, it's actually infinitesimal. Someone told me it's something like 1%, maybe even below 1% of the total profits that Apple gets. They get far more off of the iPhone and even the iPad than anything else. I mean, the iOS devices essentially account for something like 90% of Apple's profits. Well, it would kind of make sense for them to focus on the things that make them profit, right? And I know the ecosystem argument, but you could argue that the ecosystem is the laptop. A MacBook Pro, a properly configured MacBook Pro, 17-inch with a Retina display, will get you within a hair of the performance that most people would expect out of a desktop.
I just don't believe it, because who are the people that made Apple? The people who for 15 years, 20 years now, it's been the artsy types, it's been the graphic desktop designers, it's been the video editors, and to turn your back on those people would be insane. I just don't see it.
I think it would definitely upset that community as well. I totally agree.
And the sales are flat because they haven't significantly updated it in so long. So it isn't as compelling as it used to be. We'll see if they do follow up on these promises from last summer and come out with new Mac Pros by the end of 2013, if maybe those profit margins are a little better. Maybe they've figured out how to make more money off them.
Well, yeah, maybe it's just, it also could be a very saturated market at this point for people who are using a Mac Pro, because, you've got a certain number of people who are doing that kind of work that requires that amount of power. People who are buying laptops can be, it runs the gamut of all different sorts of people. So I don't know, maybe that's why we've seen flat numbers in recent years. They're just waiting for the next device to upgrade to.
Yeah. Well,
and then maybe dusting up some stuff in the meantime. I mean, again, if they're already pausing anyway to take a breath and do the next release, why not go ahead and be all like, screw you, lawmakers?
But it's not screw you, lawmakers. It's the law went into effect and the product doesn't comply to it. They can't sell it.
Who are these people sticking their fingers into computer fans?
I've done that. Actually, I've done that.
You've done that.
I have done that. It's like, my computer's getting hot. Let me see if the fan's still working.
That's
Ow.
true.
Yes, it's still working. I've been there.
It's those famous long-fingered Germans.
I do it just to see if I still feel.
Now we're going to a very different place altogether.
It's gotten dark.
It just got dark. But okay, look, Apple is not known for bending to suit itself to every little legislative change and every consumer demand. But what company does bend over backwards to give the consumers exactly what they want?
What company is that?
Facebook.
It's true.
Not really, but we do have an article here about how Facebook beat the estimates. Woo!
Money exchange.
Revenue was up 40% year over year, up to 1.59 billion, or as we like to call it, 1.5 Instagrams. That means that they're also accounting for 1.06 billion monthly active users, 618 million daily active users, and more importantly, 680 million monthly active users on mobile. Now, the understory here, reported on by The Verge, is that mobile activity has now passed desktop activity on Facebook, which is actually not as big of a blessing as it may sound like, because anyone who's sold ads knows that, mobile makes you a lot less money than a desktop ad. In fact, in some instances, it can make something like 10% of what you would make if that ad had actually displayed on a desktop. So we're in this weird realm where Facebook is continuing to increase the number of users they have, but just to maintain revenue. In other words, for every mobile desktop user you lose, you have to add 10 mobile users just to stay flat on revenue. And of course, they don't need to stay flat; they need to grow it. So my question to the panel is: looking at these numbers, looking at Facebook's revenue, looking at them hoping to beat estimates in the next quarter. What do they have to do in order to increase the number of mobile users and desktop users?
Well, I don't think they need to increase the number of desktop users. And the reason I say that is not because you're wrong about the current state of ad revenue, but the money is going towards mobile. And that's why everyone is thinking, you know what, Facebook better get onto mobile, because if they're behind the game, they're going to lose out when people move to mobile. Everybody knows usage is going to mobile. You can't change that. You can't stop user behavior. What you need to do is lean into it. And what Facebook's doing, to my mind, is very smart, which is making sure that they're gussying up their actual mobile applications so they're usable, which they weren't for a while. And now the next step is to come up with compelling apps that make people want to use Facebook more, which gives them more of an opportunity to sell ads. I think the amount of money you can make off mobile is going to rise, just like the amount of money you can make off internet, off of websites, has risen over time. This is kind of a normal pattern for new ways of getting advertising. It's always a lower money game at the beginning until you get that critical mass moving over there.
And they also are looking into new ways of making money. We've seen them launching the ability to buy actual presence on Facebook now, and we've seen some other developments like that where it's clear that they're trying to find new ways of generating revenue beyond simple insertions of ads and highlighted posts and sponsored posts and things like that. I think they'll continue to do that, and I think that that's something that we'll be seeing a lot of different websites doing throughout the course of this year and next year, because Facebook isn't the only one suffering from this problem. We certainly see the same trend on our end as well. And if you are a website that's heavily dependent on desktop revenue, if you don't have a plan for this, you're in trouble.
Actually, Tim, let me ask you that because you might have some unique insight. And that is, why is it that a mobile eyeball is worth so much less than a desktop eyeball?
It's not so much that an eyeball is worth less. On one thing, there's less space. You know, you can put 3 or 4 banner ads on a page on a desktop. You can't necessarily do that on a mobile page without making it completely obtrusive and ugly. So, you know, you go from maybe 3 or 4 banner spaces to only 1 banner space. And then the engagement is much, much lower on mobile in general as well. You know, you can click and open a tab on a desktop and kind of forget about it. So people are more likely to click. But if you tap on something, it kind of takes over your mobile experience. And so people are much more.
Think about also, Tim, the fact that where do you make your purchases? When you buy stuff from Amazon, think about how often you do it at a desktop versus on a mobile device.
Yeah.
So if the goal of advertisement is to get people to buy stuff, then structurally there are deep problems with the mobile. Now they can win if what they're doing is investing in a lot of R&D to make the mobile ads exquisitely targeted for very specific, like granted, you only get 1 banner ad instead of 3, but it is precisely exactly what you want, and you have the fewest number of clicks possible between the claim that they have a solution for you and you actually placing that order. I think they can win with that. And I think you're right. This is the time to be investing in the infrastructure to make that possible on mobile.
It certainly can't get much worse. Whenever I'm shopping for something and I'll buy that something, and then I'll see banner ads for that something for the next month on Facebook.
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
I've
Why
already
is it
did
always after the fact?
In the worst case is when I donate to the ASPCA, I see sad puppies on Facebook for weeks, and it's the worst thing ever. It's like, I don't want to give money to the ASPCA because then I see sad puppies on Facebook for a month.
Negative reinforcement.
I
like
look for so much stuff on Amazon for Texzilla episodes, and then for months afterwards, I'm like, I just don't need that many UPSs. I just don't. Just a lot of ads for uninterruptible power supplies. Anyway.
Can't have
Facebook.
too many, though.
Yeah. No.
Well,
it's true.
Speaking of Facebook guiding us to buying things, have you all heard about Facebook's new gift card? So let me run down the specs on this. You buy it on Facebook in the gift store, but you can't use it in the gift store. It can actually only be used at 4 retailers. That's Sephora, which I just found out is cosmetics, Target, Jamba Juice, and Olive Garden.
It's a good mix. It sounds like a good time at the mall.
It's
actually,
an eclectic mix, yes. Now, a lot of people are sort of scratching their head at this. I think we know where Facebook wants to go. I mean, they would like a piece of the financial pie that they're pushing people to.
Yeah.
But this seems like a really, really block-handed way to do it.
It's a stretch. It's definitely a stretch. I think the idea of selling someone a birthday present through Facebook is actually pretty smart. I mean, when you send somebody, you say happy birthday, it says, hey, would you like to send them an actual gift? I think that makes sense. But yes, a gift card, not so much.
Right. This is the next level, right? Because if you're reminding someone that so-and-so has a birthday, it'll also say, oh, by the way, these people like this, 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 and this. Maybe you want to send them a gift. They've got the data in there, and they might as well use the graph search for something.
Oh, and they will. Oh, they will.
So open question to the panel. Are any of you intending to get a Facebook gift card?
Look, it's no. What is this, troll bait? We're not taking your stinky bait, Father.
You remember who I am. I am the troll. I do troll twit. That's my job. No, but I mean, really, who's going to buy this?
You know what? Sometimes businesses do things because you got to find out what works and what doesn't work. And without even having, I mean, it's shocking how many business decisions get made because something sounded good in a brainstorming session once and inertia takes it all the way through it. It could be that the value of this to Facebook is just to figure out, you know what? People expect gift cards to have a specific value for a specific thing. We learned something today. And if that's the case, then good on you, Facebook. Congratulations.
And you know what? Learning is half the battle.
Sure.
All right, let's go to a juicier story. We've got Judge Lucy Koh. Everyone remember her? She's everyone's favorite Korean judge in San Jose, who ruled that Samsung. Wow, did I just say that?
You did.
You sure did.
Wait, that was an out loud thought, right?
It was.
Dang. Okay. She ruled that Samsung did not willingly infringe Apple patents. This is on top of Apple going back to her last year and saying that they wanted damages. They wanted to triple the damages on the award because, of course, Samsung knew that these patents were there and that they had infringed them. Essentially, her ruling was that Samsung reasonably expected the patents to be overturned, to be invalidated. And so, therefore, since they expected them to be invalidated, they could not be held liable of willful infringement. This means that while Samsung is still on the hook for the $1 billion judgment against them, those damages cannot be tripled. And furthermore, this is on top of several key Apple patents being overturned and invalidated by the USPTO. The biggest one being the rubber banding patent that was part of the trade dress. Everyone calls it Patent 381. That was the single patent that was applied across Samsung's line and that jurors voted on as the largest component of the damage. So my question is, and again, this is a question we've heard a couple of times, what does this do for the damages? Obviously, they're going to get reduced. If Patent 381 is no longer valid, and if Samsung does not have to pay those damages, we're talking about half of the judgment. And if it goes further and says that Samsung did not willingly infringe Apple patents, it helps Samsung in their appeal of the decision, does it not?
Yeah, but then Apple can still appeal this ruling as well, I think. I think it can just go back and forth indefinitely, right?
True.
I don't know how the law works.
Yeah. I spoke to Evan Brown about this, and I listened to him about 10 minutes, and then my brain exploded. But he also mentioned that our USPTO has a very interesting component to it where the company applying for the patent or the individual applying for the patent is actually responsible for doing the due diligence to make sure that the patent will be valid. So if that's true, Apple can be held liable for Samsung's court costs to defend themselves against the invalid Patent 318. Nothing.
That sounded like law talk, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I don't here in
messy.
Texas, we don't cotton to law talkers.
Is that what you call them in Texas? Law talkers?
Law talkers. Your Honor, I'm a simple law talker. I'm afraid that I cannot understand your patent laws. Look, man, I'll tell you what. My gut tells me, and I know nothing. Reminder, spoiler alert, I'm an idiot who eats fire for a living. But I don't know that it's the craziest defense I've ever heard. The idea that somebody could say, yes, it was illegal while we were doing it, but we thought it wouldn't be illegal by the time we got it done. Like, that sounds crazy, but to be honest, I've accelerated in anticipation of a speed limit increase, and sometimes that speed limit increase wasn't there. And then, but in my heart, I wasn't breaking the law on purpose. I thought I was getting ready to obey the new law.
All right. Okay. Well, speaking of the new law, we often find ourselves in need of entertainment to divert ourselves from this Apple Samsung thing. This was an absolutely horrible transition.
The segue is amazing.
This one died.
I'm just hanging on.
I had something, I really did, and
Are you trying
mind.
to say that the reason I didn't have anything to say about the patent case is because I was busy listening to a book from audible.com?
See, I knew it. I had that
Yeah,
there. That was in the
fine.
corner of my brain, and it just would not come out.
It's been brought.
Here's the thing. I'll talk to Tom on the phone, and I'll bring something up, and he won't answer, and he'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. I was just enjoying some of the thousands of awesome titles on audible.com. I'm able to listen to it on my phone
100,000
while
downloadable
talking right now."
titles across all types of devices, including fiction, nonfiction, periodicals.
We are missing out, Padre. We are missing out.
missing out.
You know what's
if
amazing?
you're not missing out, because if you're in the This Week in Tech audience, which Tim, you actually are, you can get 2 audiobooks to give Audible a try. We're giving Twit listeners the Platinum plan on trial. 2 free audiobooks to try it out, 2 book credits a month. That means some of those really big books that are 2 credits, you can get those for free.
You know what?
Or you get those
about,
on the plan.
The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, who I believe was on your podcast, Sword and Laser, recently.
You know
Yes.
what? Yeah, you could get the Name of the Wind. What would be another good one to go along with Name of the Wind, Veronica?
I think a great pick would be Old Man's War by John Scalzi, also a recent Sword and Laser pick. An excellent pick, I might add.
And Red by Will Wheaton. No, is it not?
It is not. No.
It's not. Oh, I was thinking of Red Shirt.
You're doing so good, Tom. You're doing really good there for a while.
There you go. And not Read by Will Wheaton, which I don't know. Maybe that's a positive for somebody. It's a great deal for people who enjoy listening to audio programming. I get a lot done. I'm listening to Red Country by Joe Abercrombie right now. It's
There you
helping me
go. I'm also
get things
listening to
organized around the house. For more details, to get those 2 free audiobooks and the Platinum offer, which includes a free subscription to the audio versions of the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, go to audible.com/twit2. That's TWIT and the number 2, audible.com/twit2, available in the U.S. and Canada. And we definitely thank Audible for their support of all kinds of things we do, and especially This Week in Tech.
Oh, wait. For a second, I was sure that you said tech news because you do that on frame rate all the time. You accidentally started to say
on purpose on
today.
frame rate.
Oh, the truth comes out. Oh, my goodness.
It's a funny.
It is. It is. Okay, you know what's not funny? What's not funny is Netflix getting creative. Now, I know that you've covered this on frame rate, so I'm going to lean on the two of you heavily. Netflix $100 million bet on House of Cards. Now, this is an interesting story for many reasons. So first of all, because it seems to be a very interesting show. You've got Kevin Spacey. You've got a well-funded production, high production values. It's, it's a show on the internet, yes, but at the same time, there's a lot of rustling about this being the future of content, that this model could redefine how we look at shows in the future. We've got Netflix CTO, the Chief Content Officer, looking at a $300 million budget for original programming. He wants 5 shows a year. And his quote is, the goal is to become HBO faster than HBO, for Netflix to become HBO faster than HBO can become Netflix. Now,
I 100% believe this. This will happen. I guarantee it. But it sounded like you had something else. What was that?
Well, what I like about this is it's a new way of dealing with content. So in the typical development cycle that you would get on a network, you would create a pilot. The pilot would go out. They'd see how well it does, how many people watched it, what was the audience response, are advertisers willing to buy it? And that is why sometimes you'll have a pilot that does really well that dies, because it may be popular with the audience, but if no one's willing to pay for advertising, it dies in the crib. Netflix's new scheme works like this. You make a show, a single first episode, to determine if the concept is valid. Will people watch it? Is it watchable? If that is, that's the only question you have to go with. You make the whole season, because Netflix realizes their delivery system is not the same as the networks. They are not bound by the time schedule. In other words, to run one program, it does not mean you have to remove another. With the internet, all they need is content. They put the content there, people will watch it, and they get paid in subscriptions. It's a totally different way of thinking about what we watch.
And I mean, we are all really bingers at the end of the day when it comes to this kind of stuff. So if I find a show that I like to watch on Netflix or on Hulu or something like that, as long as I will just watch the entire thing in one go. So I think this really speaks to that model being successful going forward, because I feel like that's a lot of the reason that people are so into watching internet content and into watching stuff that's on Netflix, because you have that accessibility to the entire catalog right away.
Now, I got to be honest, Father Robert, that I had not even considered. I mean, I think what you just came across is an extremely important and significant idea. The idea that the types of stories that can be told now are fundamentally different, because for the first time, they are not catering to advertisers. They're catering to the people who buy it. Imagine if all your favorite books were not written just for what they thought the reader would like to hear, but instead were written, what do advertisers think would be a good book that they want to put their money behind. And taking that out of the equation makes possible a totally different form of storytelling. And that's why, my co-host on NSFW, Justin Robert Young, and I have argued on screen for hours at a time. He's under the impression that Netflix should be releasing these episodes weekly so that they can maximize their relevance culturally. Like every week, every Monday, you talk about the latest episode of such and such. But now that House of Cards is out, dude, that model is dead and stupid and buried, and I want it gone forever. What they're doing is brilliant, because even if they were releasing it week over week, I would just wait 3 more weeks until they'd run their course, so then I could watch them all straight through at once. Watching a story with a deep, fascinating narrative like House of Cards, watching it straight through, and I'm only like 6 episodes in, is phenomenal. And there's so many, it's as good as any narrative I've seen on HBO. I think the last time I felt this way about a series was maybe not The Wire, but the Shield. I love what they're doing with this thing, directed by David Fincher. It's amazing, and the fact that they're releasing it all at once is they're taking narratives, long form episodic narratives, and releasing them and treating them more like 13 to 18 hour long single narrative arcs is amazing. I think is a brilliant move on their part.
There's a lot of interesting things about what's going on here, and you can make arguments about whether HBO was doing what Netflix was doing for a long time, and that they would make quality programming without having to be beholden to advertisers. But they still followed the clock. They still required their shows to fit in that 60-minute time slot or 30-minute time slot because they had a schedule to keep. Netflix doesn't have a schedule. So one of the more interesting things about House of Cards, I feel like, is that each episode is a different length because they were allowed to just make the episode as long as they felt it needed to be to tell the story. But I think the most important question to me about this is, are people going to be walking around talking about House of Cards to each other to the point where people feel like, oh, I have to go check that out, or I want to put that on my list of things to see, the way that Sex and the City, The Wire, Lost, etc., Game of Thrones have been in the past. Whether you've seen them or not, they're definitely, someone at least who's told you you've got to watch this. And House of Cards needs to build up that momentum. If it does, if it has that kind of conversation out there, huge win for Netflix, and that's what they want to keep doing.
Well,
you guys have been pimping it big time.
Well, I mean, I'm excited about it. Tom's only watched the first episode because he's not stepping up to the plate. Apparently, he doesn't value the frame rate experience of cord cutting the way I do. But the important thing...
that's exactly right, because I hate cord cutting. I limited myself to only watching one episode.
But here's the important thing is that people don't talk about those other shows because they're released weekly. They talk about them because they're exceptional and they're really good. And House of Cards is like that. Again, if the success of television is not based on weekly episodic content, it's based on good stories. And again, all you have to do is look to novels. What we are doing is we're taking television shows and we're enjoying them the way we enjoy novels. Novel comes out on a Friday. You meet with them on Monday. You say, how far in are you? I'm up to page 150. How you like? Oh, it's great. And you know where you are because you don't want to spoil something that comes ahead. You still have these conversations, and it still lasts a long time. Nothing is being ruined by releasing everything at once. Instead, all you're doing is allowing the end user to regulate his own consumption experience, and that's nothing but pure rad.
Let me ask you this. What changes when we move away from the network format? What I mean by this is, imagine all the things that happen within a typical network TV show or even cable TV show that you don't have to do on the internet. So episode length, 30 minutes or 60 minutes long. You have to craft the stories so that there are regular periods at which you can take a break to do advertising. There are certain things that you have to do in order to lend itself to an episodic development of characters that you won't have to do if your episode length can be anything it needs to be. What changes about the storytelling if we free ourselves from the constraints that we've put on ourselves in the past 30 years of television?
I think it's... Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to drag out my dusty old book analogy. Novels used to be written in serial. Charles Dickens wrote a bunch of his novels in serial first, and then they were put out as books later. And I think it's sort of the same evolution, which is the form changes, but the form changes anyway. So it's hard to distinguish like what changed because we stopped putting out serials and started putting out books fully formed, and what changed just because the culture changed. But I think we will see some stories get told that wouldn't get told otherwise. And I think of things like Lost, where they had to struggle hard to get the network to let them end the show when they wanted to end it because they had a definite end. You can argue whether you liked that end or not, but they had it in mind. And that is unusual in network television, in broadcast television, cable television even. So now Netflix can say, yeah, you just have 2 seasons of story. That's great. We'll take it.
And also, maybe it'll make it so that good shows that don't have a huge, strong audience right out of the gate don't have to get canceled, that they can actually kind of live up to their potential without having to force that, that massive initial audience that will keep them on the air.
Is this the direct-to-video moment for television? Just as Hollywood found out that there was a significant amount of money to be made in pushing certain content direct to DVD, could now television studios realize that we can make series that aren't immediately popular because we know we're going to make it on the back end when we put it up on a service like Amazon or Netflix?
I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with that parallel altogether. I mean, direct to DVD is the home of crap cash grabs to squeeze a little more money out of existing franchises. So it's hard for me to get excited about that. I'm much more intrigued by the ability for independent filmmakers, for documentarians to tell stories that have no business being in movie theaters just because nobody would go see them, but they're so esoteric that by finding their voice in digital, they can create these as we talk about on Frame Rate, these micro networks, these 3-4 man operations that are able to hit profitability because of the economy of scale.
I think the direct-to-DVD thing is very interesting because I was talking to a guy who worked in Hollywood for years recently, and he said that all the money is gone because they lost direct-to-DVD sales. And in my mind, I feel like we're seeing this big fight against so-called piracy because of the direct-to-DVD sales going away, people stopping buying those. This may provide an avenue and an outlet, not only for television shows, but for movies to be made specifically for Amazon, for Hulu, for Netflix. And I'm interested to see what explorations start happening in that arena.
All right. So I do want to ask this, and that is I love the concept of independent filmmakers and independent content makers coming in to Netflix or to Hulu or to Amazon and actually getting a forum to voice their stories. But how many of us are actually going there for that content? I am a Netflix subscriber. I watch seasons of Archer. I watch seasons of Stargate Universe. I watch television shows. I have never watched Lilyhammer or House of Cards.
Oh, well, you're an idiot, and you're dumb. Plus, you have a silly face.
Naturally,
dude,
yes.
You gotta watch those. But more importantly, the independent content, what I love about the all-you-can-eat, welcome to our arcade, have whatever you want attitude that Netflix has, is I am somebody who is very gun-shy about committing to going to a movie, spending my $10 to get in and sit down and spend 2 hours looking at something. The stakes are too high. If it sucks and I feel 30 minutes in that I'm watching something I hate, then all of a sudden I instantly regret the decision. But what Netflix has done is they've taken away that. I can leave at any time. I've not paid any entrance fee. I can stop anytime I want. And as a result, there's a number of crazy independent documentaries. Some of them have been exquisite. Some of them I would have rolled my eyes at when I saw them. Who killed the electric car or the business of being born. And I found points that I really would never have heard otherwise because I knew I could quit at any time. And I actually couldn't finish The Business of Being Born, but I'm really glad I watched that first half up until I saw Ricky Lake naked giving birth in a tub.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened. In these eyes, written on this brain. No backseas on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right
See,
out of the
that's
queue
not
on
making
that
me
one.
want to watch that, really.
Well, I watched it, so you don't have to. Thank you, Netflix.
Some memories may be tied to a single neuron, Brian. We could look into that.
we can get rid of that for you. All right, so I do want to move on, but I want to stay with that theme because we are talking about the new form of content distribution. This story comes from Wired, and it's all about Amazon taking one from Netflix. They have scored Downton Abbey, or as I like to call it, Downtown Arby's, from Netflix.
No.
I know.
Don't do that.
This is another show which I will admit up front that I have never watched. I want to watch it. I want to wait until I have enough of the series where I could sit down and have a big cry fest. But starting in mid-June, Amazon Prime members will be able to see it. And they'll be the only ones able to see the legal streams of Season 3 of Downton Abbey. Now, an unspecified while later, Seasons 1 and 2 will also be only available on Amazon. And when Season 4 premieres, it will be available, again, only on Amazon. So they've really put a big bet. We don't know exactly how much money, but a big bet into drawing people into Prime because of the content that you can get for stream. My question to you is this the future of content where we're going to have these distributors, Amazon, Netflix, maybe you could even throw Hulu in there, who are going to be vying for these hot spots of content, hoping that that's going to be the franchise that they can build on?
Yeah, it's great. I think it's great that these networks are picking up these IPs, but the fact of the matter is it's making it more difficult. I mean, we've got all these set-top boxes that have like certain services on them. They've either got Amazon streaming, they've got Netflix, they've got, whatever is out there. And it's frustrating for the consumer because you feel like you have to make a choice. And maybe we've had to make these kinds of choices all along, but at the end of the day, it's getting harder and harder to decide what you're going to be paying money for. Right now, I'm a Prime member, I'm a Hulu Plus member. I never buy stuff on iTunes, but it's getting harder to choose. And I think it feels like it does the consumer a disservice, but maybe that's always how it's going to be.
Well, we again, spoiler, we talked about this on Frame Rate. And if you're not watching Frame Rate, you really should. It's a fine show on the Twit Network, live every Monday night with me and Tom Merritt. One of the things, as much as we don't like to see, and I empathize with where you're coming from, where it's like, subscribing to all these different services, the balkanization of the content in new media. But on the flip side, there's another part of me where I would rather, I don't care at this point, and this is going to sound crazy coming from someone like me, I don't care if they divvy up all the content and make it available on like an oligarchy of 4 networks that I have to pay subscription to all 4 of those, as long as they get all the content and I no longer have to pay for cable. I would much, much rather pay an HBO Go subscription, an Amazon Prime subscription, a Netflix subscription, and a Hulu subscription, pay all 4 of these guys and not give 1 more cent to Time Warner Cable. That would be amazing. But
that would be amazing. I would go for that.
So I don't know. So when I see stuff like this, it makes me happy to see more players in the environment. And Father Robert, you were acting like Hulu's kind of the redheaded stepchild. I mean, the Amazon Prime has been the laggard of the big 3. It's been Netflix, Hulu, and then Amazon Prime. And the fact that we're seeing these move, this is great news that they're securing. The fact that they're securing these exclusives means this is a robust market and people recognize that there's a lot of opportunity there. So this is something, while it's not exciting, we shouldn't be happy that there's only one place for you to get it now. We should be happy that people perceive this as a important enough space that they want to be the only person that you could get X, Y, and Z.
Now, I remember something that I heard from Dr. Brushwood on an episode of Frame Rate not too long ago, that people really don't give a crap where they're getting it from, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. But the problem is that with exclusives, we're making it more complicated. We're essentially putting another barrier in the way for people to cut the cords. Do you no longer subscribe to that theory?
I don't know who that person is that you're talking about, but he sounds like an idiot. This guy, however, thinks that, as long as there certainly should be as few barriers as possible, and exclusives and windowing makes things complicated for us. But there's no reason that we can't see other services provide kind of a concierge service that make it to where you don't even know who it is you're paying to get your content. You just know you want Downton Abbey, and now it's on your screen. Like, that's what I'm in favor of.
That's kind of what my TiVo does now. My TiVo kind of does that. My TiVo HD kind of does that right now, or my Series 3. I don't remember. Whatever TiVo I have, I can search for shows and then it'll give me the options about where online I can view those shows on my TV. So I can either choose from Amazon Prime or Hulu Plus or Netflix. So that's good. But then at the same time, I have to pay for all of those services. I don't know why I pay for Hulu Plus. It's terrible.
Put it on pause. Just put it on hold. That's what I do with my Hulu Plus subscription. I've had it on hold forever.
Oh, really?
I just wait until there's a reason for me to take it off hold. And then I take it off hold to watch whatever I need it for, and then I put it back on hold. Google TV and Wii U both do the same thing you're talking about that the TiVo does.
Oh.
But the TiVo does one big thing that the Wii U can't do. It makes
record television?
No, it makes that cool song. The boop, boop, boop.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that too.
Missed that.
I think, it's funny that we sit here and we're like complaining that exclusives are given, not just to Amazon with Downton Abbey, but Netflix is going to have an exclusive on Disney movies, when the complaint up till now has been you can't get everything online. So we have immediately switched over from complaining like we can't even get this stuff online to we can only get this stuff one place online. And
but Tom, it's our job to complain about everything.
Oh, believe me.
Publicly.
Out of a job.
If people stop complaining, I'd have to go back to my real job.
It's not that different from getting a cable subscription. Let's say the cable subscription is like your internet subscription, and then having to choose your tier. What channels do you want to get? There's basic channels, there's advanced basic channels, then there's your premium channels, and you got to know what shows you want from those tiers, and then that's how you pick what tier you pay for.
I think, it would be, at this point, I could probably, with a few exceptions, I could cut the cord and just maintain my online video subscription services and be in pretty good shape. So you're right. That is a very good thing. And I'm glad that more of this content that, Downton Abbey what season is that on now? Because
we're going into season 4.
We're going into season 4. Okay. And I know that seeing it on TV here in the US, it's like a season behind, right?
Right.
We're in the middle of season 3 here in the U.S. Yeah.
Okay,
Or
so
may
I
have
think
just
it
finished,
would be
I'm not sure.
great. It would be great, if it was actually timely with what they're showing over there. So, when the show comes on, if you're willing to pay for it via Amazon Prime, which by the way, Amazon Prime just in general is life-changing, so I highly recommend it. That would make it even more worth it to me if it was timely in that regard.
All right.
Dead silence.
Dead silence.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for Tom. Tom, could you something that I've wanted to do since I got onto the Twit network? I've wanted to learn how to do proper segues. How would you do a segue?
I've been thinking for a long time, Father Robert, of starting a website that just gives some of the things I've learned about doing segues and maybe pointing to some of the people that I've learned from out there. And one of the easy ways for me to do that would be with our sponsor, squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high quality website or blog. We use it for Sword and Laser, Veronica and I. It's a super simple way to get not only a great looking website, but a website where you can concentrate just on the content that you're putting in there. So you can go and just write your headlines, write your posts, put up your photos, make a gallery, a couple clicks. What you see is what you get in the new Squarespace 6. And it takes care of the reliability, making sure everything's served, making sure that your site has a mobile responsive design that looks right on a phone, looks right on a tablet, that auto plays music sometimes if you want it to. All of that taken care of. You don't have to think about it. Brian, you had a great story about putting together that website about pandas.
Oh my gosh. Here's how crazy easy Squarespace is. My daughter apparently she learned in school that pandas are in trouble. So she comes home and like, Dad, I want to make a website. And I was like, I don't even know where my copy of Dreamweaver is. I don't even remember half of this crap. And so I just went and I hooked her up with a trial account at Squarespace. And then before I knew, I turned around and she had already registered. She set it all up. Panda-save.org is now my 8-year-old daughter. So easy, an 8-year-old could do it. And it probably looks better than your website. In your face, person I'm talking to. That's how easy Squarespace is.
Wait,
Check it out.
Panda-save?
Yeah.
Panda-save.org.
I think it's .com.
No, I
Actually,
think it's not .org.
Oh, .com.
Yes, it's
Sorry.
.com.
.com.
Oh,
probably do that.
Panda.
and it's adorable.
Look at it, man. Panda
You use
is
the same layout as my wedding website.
Take a look at this. Like if you click on the blog or whatever, she says, or action or blog or about, one of those, like she explains that, here we go. What's it say there? It says there, at school, we read a passage on pandas. It made me really sad to find out that there were so few left. So I made this website to encourage people to donate. Now look at the adorable picture.
She's got it right. She got the priority right.
Pandas
The
are
picture.
aliens.
So cute.
26
It's amazing.
comments. Wow.
That's a lot.
That's
of
how
comments.
easy it is to set up a Squarespace.com site. And to make it even easier, you can sign up for a free account. You don't need a credit card or anything to sign up for the free account. Start building your website right now. If you do decide to purchase the service, if you like it, use the offer code on your screen right now. What is it? There it is. Twit2. That's squarespace.com. Twit2 will get you 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. Use that offer code Twit2. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank Squarespace for their support of all the shows on Twit, especially
This is my favorite part
This Week
here.
in Tech.
It says here, pandas are endangered. How you can help? Go to a site like this one and donate. We do not accept donations.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you. That was an awesome tutorial on how to do segues. I appreciate that. I will study that and try to incorporate that into all of our Twit goodness.
Be careful not to make your
I hope you
segues
found
too
it
near a
helpful.
cliff.
That's right. Right.
Was that too soon?
Too soon.
That was too
soon. All right, let's get into the home stretch where we're going to get super, super geeky. Thankfully, we've got the right panel for this. I'm calling it Hacker Alley, starting with the crazy, nasty, scary vulnerability in UPnP. That's Universal Plug and Play. This is a feature that has been incorporated into network devices, usually consumer/small business network devices, for the last 12 years. What it allows you to do is it allows you to have a router and have devices behind it that are pinged by a discovery packet, which the router will then say, hey, what do you need? So, for example, you can have an Xbox Live that says, I need these ports open so that I could play games. You've got a Skype phone that says, I need these ports open so that I can establish a direct line to another Skype device. You've got toasters and refrigerators that say, I need these ports open so that someone can ping me to find out whether or not I need service. That's the kind of thing that UPnP does. Well, the problem that has been discovered by H.D. Moore, the man of Metasploit fame, and reported on by our very own Steve Gibson, is that this UPnP service is, well, it's insecure. In fact, pros have been turning it off for years because it requires no authentication. Basically, any device in the network can configure a router. That's not necessarily the best thing to do. Well, now imagine that I give that power to reconfigure my router to everything outside of my router. That's the vulnerability that we're talking about. This UPnP feature, which should only be accessible from inside the LAN, has been found to be available on the WAN port, the outside, the internet-facing port, on over 81 million devices. H.D. Moore did a scan of the internet, a complete scan, using enough servers so that he could scan every address in the IPv4 space once a week, and he did this for 5.5 months. What he found was that there are 81 million devices that have UPnP turned on the WAN port. Now, let me stress, there's absolutely no good reason to have it on in the WAN port. That should never be turned on to the outside world. What this allows people to do who are, like me, is they can send a discovery packet, a UDP packet, to your router, find out exactly what operating system it's running, and then reconfigure it so that it can start looking at all the devices on the other side of your firewall. It's a horrible, horrible exploit. And, well, you know, it's something that we've seen coming because we knew that UPnP was insecure. We knew that it should be turned off. And yet, it turns out that these manufacturers have not just left it on, but they've improperly used it. My question to the panel is this. We're seeing more and more situations in which dumb consumer-level devices, things that we thought, oh, I just buy it and it works, are no longer that way. When I go to Fry's or Best Buy, I expect that if I buy a name brand router and I plug it in, it's just going to work out of the box. It looks like we're actually expecting more understanding and more knowledge out of end users than we used to. What kind of trends do you guys see here?
You know what? It's tough to say because look, I ain't in the business of telling other people what they think or what they're good at or what they'll be smart about doing. But it does seem like, look, if there's a sin, it's making too many options here. And it seems like a lot of this stuff self-corrects. For example, I'm looking at the story right now. In the chat room, somebody says, well, my router just passed the test. I said, what test? Instantly forward me a link over to Gibson Research Corporation, of course, and to check for the vulnerability on this exact thing. Here, let me see if I can actually show it to you right here.
Shields up.
Screen.
I've got it on my screen, Chad.
Just
Okay,
search Steve Gibson Shields Up. It'll get you to the right place.
Right there. So it's like, there it is. It goes and it tells me that I'm fine. And it's like, I have permission to remain dumb. I don't have to know why I'm safe. I just have to know that I'm safe. And I do now. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, this is one of those things where it's because we have people like Steve Gibson out there who are so passionate about finding these exploits and security holes and exposing them. And as a result, I can remain completely dumb. And I'm thrilled to remain as ignorant and as stupid as I possibly can.
But you have to be informed enough to actually know that you have to run the test, which is the thing. How do we get people to know that they need to run this test?
Right.
I mean, obviously, we're doing it right now, public service, everybody, you're welcome. But those people who are unfortunate enough to not be watching right now, who might be, I don't know, tuned into a certain football game taking place in a large container of some sort, you know, how do we educate them?
Well, that's always been the question because we want to make these devices dead simple. And so everything is always plug and play. I mean, that's the catchphrase, even though pros kind of wince every time we hear plug and play because plug and play normally means incredibly insecure. That's how you sell a device. You don't want to tell someone, oh, we're going to sell you this gaming console and all you have to do is open up port 2120 in order to get an outbound connection to work properly with another. No, you can't do that. It's got to be, as long as you have this router and this device and you turn it on, it will work. Well, but that doesn't lend itself to security. So yeah, these are always going to be at odds. So the question here really isn't, well, should everyone just start learning about network security? Because that's not going to happen. The question becomes, what do manufacturers have to do to include the same level of drop-dead, easy to use, along with at least a modicum of network security? Anyone want to argue against network security here?
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
They should
preach
do
to the
that.
choir there.
Veronica, I really like to hear your devil's advocate view of network
I
security.
don't have I mean, it is hard to decide whose responsibility it is at the end of the day. You know, I tend to think that it should be the consumer's responsibility. I understand why people would think it should be the manufacturer's responsibility, but you know, at the end, like I said, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to understand what we're purchasing and how we're using it and the consequences of using it incorrectly.
Yeah.
I'll strike the
I'm
middle,
always-
and I'll say it is. You're right. It is your responsibility to secure your machines, but there is also responsibility on the device makers to not knowingly provide insecure products, and when they do know about something, as in this case, to work to secure them and inform their consumers, hey, you know, we're the experts on building this stuff, and we just found this out. So, you know, here's the solution. Here's the fix.
Right.
Is there any kind of formal, like a recall process? I mean, if you buy a children's stroller and it's not safe for your children, obviously there's a process for getting that recalled. Is there anything like that for the tech community?
Absolutely not for this problem.
I think there's a business
Not for this
opportunity
problem,
there.
right. I mean, routers are a weird device because people tend to buy them and then they're never supported because they are a dumb device. Because typically you plug it in and you'll never see it again. They don't get a lot of support. And most of the ones that you buy, unless it's really expensive, they don't do automatic updates. So most people are running a router with 10-year-old code. Not cool. You know, that's you're not supposed to. You would not hook up a Windows computer that has not been patched for 10 years. Why would you do that with your router?
Oh yeah, don't do that.
I don't know.
Makes my skin crawl.
I am universally on the side of whatever the question is, I'm always in favor of more options and more power to the person buying it, which means even if you want to do something stupid, something idiotic, like it's the Linux defense, right? If you can type a single command in Linux that'll utterly destroy everything and it won't even bother to ask you, are you sure you want to do this? And it's like, I'm okay with that. There should exist operating systems where you can do that. Now, is that the operating system for everyone? No. Do I strongly want that to be available to everyone? Yes. And so as a result, if what you want to do is run an insecure network on your router and not bother to update it, well, go nuts, man. Enjoy.
I will say this, that here at TWiT, we are dedicated to the health, not just the physical health, but the cyber health of everyone who watches. And that's why we have two shows, Security Now with Leo Laporte and Steve Gibson, and This Week in Enterprise Tech with some geeky priest, in which we discuss issues just like this, issues that might just save your digital life. So tune into those things. That was a segue, right, Tom?
Yeah, that was an excellent
That was just buzz
segue.
marketing.
Excellent student.
That was-
Amazingly done.
And I highly recommend This Week in Enterprise Tech. So I highly recommend Security Now as well. More people are probably familiar with Security Now, which is an education. You should come out of that thing with a degree. But This Week in Enterprise Tech, Father Robert, you guys do a great job of explaining what's going on in the enterprise IT world in a way that even if you're not in the enterprise IT world, it's interesting and you learn something from it.
And we have bacon pancakes. Let's move on. All right, so back into Hackers Alley. We're in the home stretch. Let's talk a little bit about China, because China hackers are all in the news this last week, with the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal both admitting that they have been hacked. The New York Times has been attacked for the last 4 months, whereas the Wall Street Journal has said that they've been getting attacked for the last couple of years. Now, it's interesting to note that it looks as if the hackers were not trying to get access to any customer data. They weren't looking for credit cards. They weren't looking for personalized information. They were looking for sources of stories that were running in each news source, which, again, that's one of the reasons why people think it was China. It was a state-sponsored effort to find out who was behind various stories. In the New York Times case, it was the story behind the minister of, I cannot remember his name or his position, but that makes it so much more fun. And they were trying to find out exactly who leaked the information about the investigation. In the case of the Wall Street Journal, the attacks originated from IPs within Russia, but were traced back to methods used by Chinese cybersecurity. And again, it seemed to be focused on finding sources of leaks about hiring processes that were going on in factories. Now, what's interesting about this is they're using zero-day exploits along with botnets of computers that have been compromised within the United States. In the case of the New York Times stories, they took over campus networks at various universities across the country and used it to brute force their way into various computers connected to the New York Times network. Now, I bring all this up because there is a great story about Google's Eric Schmidt blasting China as the internet menace. He has a new book coming out called The Digital Age, and he calls China the world's most active and enthusiastic filterer of information, as well as saying that the reason why they have such an advanced cyber warfare effort is because there is a very close relationship between the tech industry and the government. He calls for us to do the same thing in order to, A, head off the type of attacks that hit the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, but also to build up our own capability to do the same. My question to all of you is, I mean, the cyber Pearl Harbor is gone and past, right? I mean, we're already in the middle of it.
When you say question to you, is that a specific person you're talking to?
I was specifically speaking to you, Dr. Brushwood.
No, you weren't. You were talking to someone else, someone who knows something, someone who could talk about something besides online video and movies, somebody who maybe doesn't need fire for a living.
I don't think we're even close to the cyber Pearl Harbor yet. That's a bit of a stretch in terms of analogy, I would say. Tim, what do you think?
It's a little bit of a overhyped, the whole cyber Pearl Harbor, but it's also kind of necessary to scare us straight, I guess. It's less like Pearl Harbor, and it's more like some war that I can't think of right now that started very slowly and creepingly began to become a huge thing later on.
The Super Bowl?
Is that like a
what
Cold War,
about?
maybe?
War of 1812?
Like if the Cold War escalated past?
No, like the 100 Years' War.
100 Years' War?
I compare it to when the Filipino military revolted and tried to take over the government by occupying the mega mall in downtown Manila. I have no idea why I just brought that up. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion going back and forth because it seems to be a bit of nationalistic geekery here. But there is something to be said about the fact that China has used some of the best and brightest engineers it can find in order to pull off these attacks, allegedly. Whereas here in the United States, we tend to take those same people and put them in jail.
Yeah.
Okay, crickets. All right, you know what? This whole Hacker Alley thing it's kind of a bust. I think it's the wrong time for this because we're all dreaming of sporting events. I will add one little hack that was given to us by our very OMG Chad, and that is if you own a Mac, right now I want you to open up any program in which you can type something.
Don't do this.
Any program in which you could type something.
I don't trust it.
And I want you to type in capital F, Isle. So F-I-L-E, semicolon, ///.
I thought it was colon.
Colon.
Yeah, just colon.
Colon. Slash.
You know what? This is the
/
first app that I found that doesn't do it.
It doesn't do it in Text Wrangler.
It didn't do it in Colloquy.
OMG, did you fail me? Did you fail me?
Oh, no, look, it did. It did work,
there we go.
actually.
Sure it did.
Wait.
It will crash anything in a Mac.
It still didn't crash it on me. Did I write it wrong?
That's amazing.
ADM is not
gotta be a
crashing
capital
either.
It has to be. The capital F is very important.
Capital
I
F,
did.
colon, ///. Not backslash, but ///.
File ///. How does something like this? I'll tell you what's amazing about bugs like this. My brother worked on the
snap! It just crashed notational velocity.
And here's notes. It's not working.
That's amazing.
And I typed it right in Colloquy, and it still didn't crash it. I'll try again.
ADM hasn't crashed either.
So you're not even entering it as a command. All
nope,
you're doing is just
crashed it.
typing it, and it craps the bed.
And Chad, do you want to explain a little bit about putting that into a chat program?
So, yes. So if you really want to troll someone on a Mac, you can send that via iMessage, and it will always crash their iMessage because it is saved in history. So you have to go back into application support to delete the history. Yeah, and the theory running around the internet is that this is a bug in the spell checker. And so anytime that Apple runs its spell check service on a capital F file ///, it crashes the app. And so here's another dead app.
This is amazing to me, Chad, because I was saying, my brother worked on the team that did the multiplayer for Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and almost 6 months after it had come out, I was at my brother's office. He's like, "Yeah, we got a problem." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Watch this," and he's in a multiplayer map, and he's like, "You stand here." and put on the binoculars. Now hit this so you tilt to the side, and then he just starts hitting G, and unlimited grenades start coming out. Like, who would have thought to do this exact thing? I was like, do people know? He's like, apparently it's everywhere now. So it's like, it's amazing to me that you can discover these things years and years and years after the vulnerability occurs.
So everyone listening to this episode right now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to add that exact stream of text into the bottom of your SIG that goes off on every email you ever send out. Just
By the way, this only works in Mountain Lion, according to the Next Web.
Oh.
And it even crashes the error reporter.
That's amazing.
That poses a bit of a problem, does it not?
If there's anybody who deserves to receive this message, like, where should it be? Should everyone make it their Facebook status? Should it be your tweet? Should you send a tweet with
That's
it?
the thing, is it was hard to, I wrote a tweet about it, and it was hard to get it out to people because you have to type, capital F file, colon / and hit space. And so what I found that I could do is I could copy it from another article, and the spell checker in Mountain Lion, if you copy and paste something, it won't spell check your paste. So you can copy and paste as long as you don't go back and actually like leave your cursor on the thing. But yeah, that was the only way that I could get it.
According to Nick Kubrilovic, it's in the check data detector. Data detector pulls any kind of complete file URL and validates it. And when it validates it, it makes sure that it starts with lowercase f, ILE, ://. And so when you put the capital F there and just have the ///, for some reason, that causes an internal inconsistency exception. And that's what crashes the application.
There's actually the exact same problem that you can do in Windows, but the key string is Alt and F4.
Try it now, everyone.
It's shift 5 times.
That's right.
Yeah, Linux is RM-RF.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Now, we are running really close to the start of a certain sporting event. So what I'm going to ask, Tom, I really appreciate the lesson that you gave me on segues, but what can you tell me about advertising stuff that's going to come up on the Twit network?
Chad, do you have the tape ready?
I do.
Okay, you should have played it right then.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Nicely done, gentlemen.
Now.
Your router is promiscuously responding to unsolicited incoming nonsense from the public. Sniff my ports.
Windows Weekly.
Take it with you, put it in your purse or MERS if you're Paul. So yeah.
Some sort of strange effeminacy, Paul.
That is undeserved.
Undeserved, because you're more manly than most men. You certainly make me just shrivel up.
Wow.
So.
Like a slug in the sun.
Triangulation.
It's called Randy Dandio. Now you're ready to head for the horn. Way, hey, roll and go. Our boots and our oilskins are still in the pond. And the rollicking Randy Dandio.
If you missed this week on Twit, you missed a lot, folks.
By the way, that was actually the voice of the actor who does Porky Pig. He was here for the Tech Guy last week, and we recorded a few ditties. Yeah, so
Nice.
we're hoping to spread that across the Twit network.
Awesome.
Now, we're pretty much done, right? Stick a fork in this one?
I think
Pretty
so.
much.
I think probably yes.
Are you gonna do the week ahead? Because I did I recorded the whole week ahead, and I have a little joke in it.
Yeah, well, I thought
it's not very good now.
that's actually what we were going to run, but
I thought that's what Chad was going to run.
Thanks, Father Robert. Good to see you filling in for Leo. Who's that weird guy that looks like me on the panel, though? That's kind of odd. Anyway, here's some things we'll be keeping an eye on in the week ahead on Tech News Today. Monday, February 4th, RIM will begin trading on the stock market as Blackberry, although the legal change of the company's name will come later this year. Also, it's Facebook's birthday, so wish him a happy birthday. Tuesday, February 5th, new 128 gigabyte iPads will be available. Also, Zynga has their earnings call. Wednesday, February 6th, Yelp has their earnings. It's also the first of 2 days of 500 Startups Demo Day in Mountain View. Thursday, February 7th, LinkedIn has their earnings call. Friday, February 8th, Microsoft will launch the Surface Pro at Best Buy in New York. And Saturday, February 9th, the Surface Pro sales begin in the United States and Canada, starting at $899. That's a look at the week ahead. Back to you, Father Robert.
thank you, Tom, and Tom, and Chad. So here we are at the end of an episode of Twit, slightly derailed by the Super Bowl, definitely derailed by Hackers Alley. I do want to thank all of the panelists here for sacrificing a Sunday, for coming on to talk to me about pretty much everything. Brian Brushwood, you know, I've always been a big fan of yours. I love the programming that you do on the Twit Network and off the Twit Network. Tell me, what are the things that you're working on right now that people need to know about?
First of all, you should watch Frame Rate with me and Tom Merritt. It's a lot of fun. Also, we're doing I'm trying something that we've never done on Scam School before. A bunch of people are asking me to teach more advanced magic tricks, stuff that would be too complicated for us to do on Scam School. So tomorrow, this will probably be like today if you're listening to it on Monday, we should have it available at scamstuff.com. Scamstuff.com, our first extra credit episode. It's like a 23-minute episode where I teach one of the most versatile magic tricks you could do. It's something, there's no special skill required. It's just a little bit of process. It's something a little more in-depth than a Scam School episode. I want to start teaching better magic to folks. And also, we're doing a bunch more stuff from this studio thanks to our friends over at Doghouse Systems who hooked me up with the Max Troll Box. There he is right there. That's a webcam pointed at the side of my computer. They even set up like a promo code. I don't know if you remember, but Doghouse, they were one of the big promoters of Game On. They did the Double Your Memory promotion and helped keep that show going as long as it did. They're setting up another code, Schwood, and you can get the Max Trollbox art on the side of your game rig. And I got a bunch of loot for you as well. Details are online.
And, of course, you can find Brian here on the Twit Network every Tuesday at the Not Safe for Work show. What's the time of that show live?
Usually 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific at, here at live.twit.tv.
All right. Veronica Belmont, it's an absolute pleasure to finally have you on the show. I've been trying to get you for a while because, well, you're just so perfect. What's going on in your world? What do you want to promote?
I'm not perfect. I'm doing 3 shows right now. I'm doing Texilla with Patrick Norton every week over on revision3.com. I've got Factor Fictional every Friday on youtube.com/techfeed, also a Revision 3 show. And of course, Sword and Laser with Tom at swordandlaser.com or youtube.com/Geek and Sundry. We also have the audio podcast over at swordandlaser.com.
And again, thank you for coming on. I know you're busy, but, it just makes things a little bit better when we've got a dose of Belmont. Tom Merritt, over in Los Angeles, of course, host of TNT and Frame Rate on the Twit Network. What other things are afoot for you?
I don't know what's left. You booked all my co-hosts practically, but TomMerritt.com is the place to keep up with what I do. You know, one of the things I do at TomMerritt.com is today in tech history. I post every day 3 items, sometimes 4, of what happened in tech history. So if you're interested in what happened on this day in tech, go check it out.
All right. And Tim Stevens, you flew in all the way from the East Coast to be with us and to share that preview of the Blackberry 10. What's going on in Engadget?
Yeah, I'm here kind of putting some final things in place for actually an event we have coming up in March here in San Francisco called Expand, which I hope you guys will come and join us for. We're going to have a lot of tech companies showing off gadgets. Some things I can't talk about, unfortunately, but there'll be some products launched at the show. We're going to have a lot of really interesting speakers. Chris Anderson is going to be there, former editor-in-chief of Wired, talking about his new UAV startup. We're going to have Julie Ehrman from Ouya talking about her console. We're going to have Yancey Strickler from I heard, did you hear something? Yancey Strickler is going to be there talking about crowdfunding. We're going to actually have a contest where people can effectively get funded to launch their product. And we're going to have a very, very, very special guest talking about tech and novels and stuff. Miss Veronica Belmont will be there as well speaking.
Wow. Wow.
Yay.
So that'll be March 16th and 17th here in San Francisco, and you get tickets on our website, engadget.com/expand.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on.
Thank you very much.
Of course, you can find me at Twitter, PadreSJ. Follow me there. You'll be able to find out what's going on in the life of the digital Jesuit. Or if you want to find out what I'm doing here on Twit, well, you got to stop by This Week in Enterprise Tech. That's at twit.tv/Twiet. Also, I want to let you know that we record this show usually live every Sunday at 3 o'clock Pacific, but you can find all of our episodes at twit.tv/Twit. Also, we've got a brand new YouTube channel. We're doing YouTube the way it was supposed to be done by giving each show its own channel. So if you go to youtube.com/thisweekintech, you can find all the new episodes of Twit and maybe a couple of surprises. It's a grand experiment in community. Who knows where it's going to go? Finally, I want to thank everyone who makes this show possible. Chad, our fantastic TD. Chad, do you want to say a few things about the projects you're working on?
Sure. I do a little show about Minecraft called OMG Craft. You can check out at omgcraft.com. And then I work here at the Twit Network on MacBreak Weekly, Twig, this show, This Week in Tech, and stuff like that. Thanks.
Leo will be back next week after a rousing 49ers win. But for now, another Twit is in the can.
It's amazing.